Subscribe to my guy, Uncle D. Tell him Big Bass sent you.
Dennis Spurling. I'm an attorney here in Houston, Texas, an advocate for black men, largely because I am a black man. I'm a black father, I have black sons. Hey man, I do what I do.
Yeah. Welcome to the broadcast. Shout out to everybody in the chat room, man. Big shout out to Mr. 43TX. Big shout out to Pooh Man 313. All the Wrench Mob, my man Boris Barracuda. I ain't seen you in a minute, but you are out here and in it. Big shout out to everybody. All right. So look here, fellas, ladies. I want to welcome you all. My name is Dennis Spurling. And this is the Dennis Spurling broadcast. And the title of this broadcast is Black, okay, with immigrants who disrespect us, and specifically Black American, Black immigrants who come in and disrespect us. We can't do that. We can't. That's not acceptable. We have more respect for ourselves than that, more integrity, and we've been through too much. The truth is, we have done it for the most part by ourselves, and we know that when push comes to shove, foundational Black Americans or Black Americans are going to do what we always have done. So that being the case, man, first thing I want to do is explain this. Today I'm going to speak on behalf of most. Okay, when I say most, I mean most, but if not all, when I related to this issue as far as how foundational Black American people feel. Okay, it's really easy to understand why we as foundational Black Americans are not interested in unifying with people who disrespect us. Okay, respect is not optional. Okay, it's a price of admission. And after decades of watching our so-called fellow Black brothers and sisters from across the diaspora come into the United States and treat us with contempt and condescension and outright disdain, let's make one thing clear: we're done covering for you. Okay, we've given you time, we've given you room to learn, we've welcome you into our communities, our churches, our schools and movements. And how did you all repay us? By parroting white supremacist lies, by voting against our interests, especially when it comes to things like reparations, okay? And by pretending your proximity to whiteness made you superior to us. But now the consequences of that arrogance have arrived. The protection you all once quietly enjoyed under our cultural and political and historical umbrella is being stripped away. That's what delineation means. And you better believe it's real. Now, when the US government treats you like what you are, a stranger to this land, an immigrant, don't look for us. When ICE comes and knocks down your door, when your visa expires, when your property is seized, under the new Trump era mass deportation raids, you won't hear a sound from us. No marches, no hashtags, no cries for unity based on shared melanin, not at all. That bond has been broken, and you chose to divide, you chose to judge, you chose to ride the wave and spit on us while doing it. Now you're on your own, okay? And you should not insult our intelligence by pretending that we have no power, because that's what I hear a lot of immigrants, especially our foundational, or should I say our Caribbean and African brothers and sisters, they will say, well, foundational Black Americans have no power. But the truth is that's ignorance. Foundational Black Americans are the engine of America's moral conscience and political direction. It was the Congressional Black Caucus, our people, who helped crush apartheid by pushing the U.S. sanctions on white South African leaders. That wasn't Africa. That wasn't the Caribbean. That was Black America flexing its influence in the most powerful nation in the world that has ever been in its history. Yes, we have power and we know how to use it. We just don't use it to shield those who disrespect us. And for those of you still pointing fingers and mocking our incarceration rates and our dropout rates and our divorce rates, let's take a good hard look at you. Because see, your stats don't look too clean either. Many of your nations are plagued with corruption and poverty and tribalism and ethnic violence and the grape of women and children. And they are often all the time on the verge of collapse. Many of you come here from countries where women are mutilated and children are forced into labor, and yet you dare to stand on our soil, the land we built, and criticize us. Understand this, and I want you to hear me well. We are not the same. You came here to escape. We never left. You came here to fit in. We've spent centuries here fighting for freedom. And while you were busy bowing your heads for acceptance, we were out here bleeding for our rights. We are not allies by default. We are not cousins by color. And from this moment forward, you will have to earn your place or you will stand alone. We are foundational Black Americans. We are not immigrants. We are not silent. Okay? And we're not going anywhere. Now, I want to take the opportunity, as I often and always do, to remind you all, I'm going to be here for a while tonight because this is a subject that needs to be dealt with. And invariably, you all are going to learn something. And my motto is, if you don't learn anything, then I shouldn't earn anything. But if you learn something that you didn't know, if I move you, if I help you understand something, then I should earn something. Simply said, if you learn something, I should earn something. My good friend Kevin Samuels, rest in peace, said you need to pay for quality. You should pay for quality if you want to. And there's plenty of opportunities that out there for other people, but you are here for a reason. You're here for the quality that I provide. So that being the case, make sure you notify me in the Cash App. I will give you a shout out. Shout out to everybody who contributes to the Super Chat. But nevertheless, I want you to go ahead and let's go ahead and hit this right now. You guys make sure y'all hit the number one button. Let me know if you can hear this.
You guys don't like Black Americans at all. You guys just say bad things about them. They're criminals. They're from slavery. They are not from Africa. They don't know their home. Oh, you know, it's so sad. All the time, you look at a Black man and you tell them that, oh, you are from America. You are not African. You are not from Africa.
Now, this is not me saying this, okay? This is an unspoken truth that Black Americans have already known. This is clearly an African sister who is speaking the truth unapologetically. So it's not me saying this. Shout out to my man, Mr. 43TX. This sister is telling the truth, okay? This is what Black Americans are explaining right now are righteous indignation from the disrespect that we have had to endure at the hands of our so-called brothers and sisters of the diaspora. Is not imaginary and it's not made up. Let's go ahead and continue listening to this sister explain.
Africa, you are lost. You are from slavery. I'm not a slave. You are a slave. Shame on you. Shame on you to even open your mouth. Do you know how painful that is? Whether they look like you or they don't look like you, they are your people.
Here's what I want you to understand. We got all these Africans who come here and complain about Black American children, calling other Black children, foundational Black American children, calling Africans African booty scratcher. Now, I want you to compare that to the fact that they refer to us as slaves. I want you to compare that to the fact that they tell us we have no home and we don't belong and we don't know our African booty scratcher compared to you telling a person that they have no beginning, that they are nobodies. I want you to compare about that. I want you to compare that and ask yourself, in balancing the equities, which one of those statements is worse? Just think about that, okay? Just think about the hurt feelings. The fact that you would come over here and say that to us, a group of people who have romanticized Africa and up until just now know the truth about who the Africans have been to us as far as the transatlantic slave trade and also the Arab slave trade. Let's keep that in mind. But go ahead, let's let the sister keep cooking.
And you say to their face that you are not one of me. You are a slave. Wow. Do you know the pain that our ancestors went through? Just because you were not colonized does not mean you should open your mouth to call somebody a slave.
Ain't that something? Now, that's not the end of it. Let's listen to this.
People that come to the US can be so successful past the people that were born in this country.
Now, do you what she's saying? People who come to the U.S. She's not. African woman asked why Africans come here and do better than Black Americans. Shout out to Poohman313. I'm going to deal with that tonight also. I'm going to show you, and I'm going to give you the empirical evidence to show you that that also is false. Okay, that is a false statement. In fact, Africans are not doing well at all when compared to other immigrants, and they're not doing better financially as foundational Black Americans. We're going to deal with all this tonight. This is going to be a barn burner. Somebody type barn burner in the chat room. We'll be right. Let's get back to this lady.
What's up with that? It makes no sense at all.
It makes no sense at all because it's not true, ma'am, with your Ashanti knots in your head. Okay? Matter of fact, that's not a head. That's like an 8 head. You don't have a 4 head. You have an 8 head. Your forehead is an 8 head. Okay, so before you start talking reckless about my people, all right, let me let you finish.
Can you guys tell me why that happens?
You want me to tell you why? Because you are making up stuff. Okay, but the only reason they let you come over here, ma'am, is because Black people fought to let you come over. Shout out to my man Top G.
I literally want to be educated on that topic.
You want to educate me on what? Okay.
If you've got someone who got common sense, neurological sense.
Common sense, she said all you need to have is common sense and neurological sense. This must be an upgrade on Wek Hada. Somebody type Wek Hada in the chat room. Shout out to, oh, it's on tonight. I'm just going to tell y'all now, all the people out there, it's going to hurt your feelings tonight. You're going to get your feelings hurt. I'm a dignified man. I don't refer to folk out their name, but I have a way of letting you know what your place is and without being degenerate and degrading. Okay, but let's shout out to all my Akatas. This is Akata's revenge tonight. We're gonna let them have it.
Those are the people I want to talk to. I don't want to talk to the NIGGA. I refuse.
Okay. Now the sister went in, but we're not gonna do that. Let's go ahead and show you something else that I found quite interesting. So before we let our Caribbean brothers and sisters off the hook, who also have a shared heritage of slavery, I find it very interesting that they too practice this anti-foundational Black American rhetoric. Let's listen to the sister from Jamaica. Go ahead.
American, I'm Jamaican.
Now I want you to understand she is apparently in the cell phone shop and whatever happened, happened. Okay, and they got her hemmed up. And listen to what she says to the police officers. Listen very carefully.
Like I'm American, I'm Jamaican. Don't kill me here.
I'm not Black American. I'm Jamaican. Don't kill me here. This is what this woman is saying. But listen to this insidious statement that she makes next.
Go kill a Black American.
Go unalive a Black American. Did you hear that? I want you to hear that again. Okay? Don't unalive me. Go unalive a Black American.
Kill a Black American. Don't kill me here.
No one's gonna get hurt. You're good.
Okay.
See that? So when you folks say stuff like Black Americans shouldn't delineate, we need to have unity, those sort of things, understand that these other groups have already delineated from us. You understand? They've already delineated from us. Okay? That's what you need to understand. and acknowledging the fact that they've delineated. You see? Right? What kind of fool will we be if we continue to run up behind them? Now, this Hispanic fella, he said something very interesting, and I want you all to listen to what this Hispanic gentleman says in remarks to other Hispanics who are immigrants in this country.
People that came to this country illegally at a point, and they never embraced America. They never cared for it. They were here to make money and send money back.
Right.
They ended up staying here and having children in the U.S. So as their children grew up in the U.S., they never taught them to love this country. Now those kids who are U.S. citizens because they were born here have grown up with that anger towards the U.S., and every time something happens, they got to use their race as a crutch and say it's because you're racist. And they hear the stories of their parents and their grandparents of how great life was in Mexico.
Yeah.
Shout out to Kenneth Williams. Now, he's referring to Mexico, but we get that same response from the immigrants. And wait till the immigrants get to look at all the immigrant blacks who have come here and ascended to power. Look at all the leadership. Look at the difference between the rhetoric that they speak. Nobody is off limits. Name names. Listen to the rhetoric that they speak. You can hear an underlining tone of a hate for America in much of the rhetoric that we hear from the leaders in Black America who have immigrant backgrounds. Listen to it. They preach the fall of America. They want to see America go under. America's in its last days. Think about it. Now compare that to the foundational Black American leaders like Frederick Douglass and Dr. Martin Luther King and Thurgood Marshall. They sought to make America better. We don't want America to fall. Where would the 45 million Black Americans go, foundational Black Americans go, if America failed? Where would we go? We don't have hate for America. We hope to make America what it's supposed to be because we realize we don't have anywhere else to go. This is our country. This is our land. We were here before 1619. We were here before 1492. And we're going to be here. You guys hit the number 1 button if you can hear me.
But they've never been to Mexico. And if they have, it's been for little vacations. They don't understand what it is like your power went out or your Wi-Fi doesn't work.
Right.
Or the toilet ain't working, which would have been a disaster for me today. Let's just clear that up.
Full circle. Thank you, Art.
Would have been a disaster. All they know is their parents told them everything was great over there.
Right.
And then they look into their own, prison history of,
And this applies to all immigrants. This applies to Black immigrants, Latin immigrants, but he is telling you the truth from the immigrant perspective.
the Aztlan overtake,
Yeah.
and how this land was theirs. And then when you tell them it was bought and paid for by the U.S. after the Mexican-American War, and they say it was forced. Dude, let me tell you something. If I'm in a war with you and I want to take your land,
Right.
and I just whoop your rear end
Yeah.
from the north of California to the southern tip of Arizona, I'm not paying you for the land.
Shout out to Kenneth Williams. Keep listening.
And another thing, I'm tired of having to explain to Caribbeans that Black Americans have their own culture and they've been here the same amount of time as y'all been in the Caribbean. Like, no disrespect to that lady that I met last night, but I'm so tired of hearing the same, oh, y'all don't have any culture, y'all don't know where y'all come from. First of all, you don't know where you come from because you got here to the Hispaniola Islands or whatever islands that you came from, then your family and your ancestors got there 400 years ago. You know when my family got here 400 years ago? My grandmother was born on a plantation. My great-grandmother was born on a plantation. My great-great-grandmother was born on a plantation. My great-great-great-grandmother was
Shout out to Top G.
born on the plantation. So I'm tired of having to explain to y'all that y'all got here at the same time as us. So when y'all say that y'all built your own culture, Black Americans built their own culture in America the same way that you did. You just got dropped off on the island. You was a pit stop. You ain't no different from us. So stop saying that. And when people look at me and see how dark I am, they say, well, you just don't know where you come from. You're African. Yeah, you African too. But saying that you're from an island does not one up me. It's not the gotcha moment that you think it is. You actually sound stupid because you got here 400 years ago. I got here 400 years ago. And you know what wasn't a country 400 years ago? Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone. These weren't countries. It was only tribes. So you don't know where you come from, just as I don't know where I come from. You got dropped off. You were a pit stop. We are all one. We are all the same. Stop acting like us Caribbeans and us Black Americans are different people. We are the same people. Stop acting like we don't have culture, because y'all cultivated your own culture of music and the way you dress and the way you talk the same way that we did in the Americas. I can't stand seeing y'all saying that we don't have any culture when y'all running around my city dressed up as a fucking black cowboy.
Family friendly. Family friendly.
Let's be for real.
Family friendly.
Stop saying we don't have any culture when every state in America.
Family. Somebody type family friendly in the chat room. We're gonna try to keep it PC. It's Sunday. Praise God. But keep listening.
America has its own culture. Me personally, I feel proud that my ancestors was in the Carolinas in the way that they cook, the way that they dress. They was wearing suits, ties, cooking soul food. They was making something out of nothing, making something out of scraps that the master gave them, left down to them. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of go-go music. I'm proud of Black culture. Y'all be saying it sound like pots and pans. You actually sound ignorant, because go-go music sounds like tribal music. So what is it that y'all really like? So y'all like reggae, y'all put y'all respect on certain things and then you disrespect other Black cultures. Y'all be pissing me off. The way that we dress, the streetwear. The whole reason that we wear low-key gray outfits, black and white outfits in the DMV is because we want to stay low-key and stay away from the police. Everything stems from something. Y'all don't know it's like that. Y'all keep on saying that, oh, well, my country, we blah, 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 blah. Your country is like 20 square miles, bro. Y'all created your own culture. I'm proud of you. But my city did too. And lastly, if Black Americans don't got no culture, why y'all keep on meat riding? Why y'all keep on trying to dress like us? Why y'all using our slang? Why y'all using our haircuts? Why y'all using them Black women hairstyles? Why y'all wearing do-rags? What's going on? Let's get down to the bottom. Let's get to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, well, you pushed
African and Caribbean.
So you pushed us, and now you wakened a big old black bear. Okay, a big old Black American bear. You woke us up, and now you're getting the pushback. See, for years, we quietly let you talk and ignored you, but now you have Black Americans who are speaking up, okay? And so this conversation is timely and it's necessary. Let's hear what the sister has to say.
Black people who seem to carry this air of superiority towards Africa.
I feel like the reason that there is a sense of disconnect between us and the other Black countries of the diaspora is because, unlike those countries, we actually have to live with our oppressor.
That's a good point.
A lot of Caribbean countries, they've been independent for like 30.
Now, what the sister is basically saying is the reason that our foundational Black American culture is so different is because we don't have a country of our own. Up until 1965, Black Americans comprised approximately 9% of the population. It was not until the 1965 Immigration Act, which repealed the racist, xenophobic laws outlining the immigration of people of color from other countries, including African countries, Asians, and Latin countries, that we began to get an influx. Now, the truth is, beneath the line of color, Black Americans still comprise about foundational Black Americans still comprise about 9% of the population. Roughly 25% of the people of African descent in this country are either first generation or second generation immigrants. That's something else we're going to discuss here. You guys hit the number one button. But yeah, that's why our culture is different. And that's why their culture will not survive in the United States. It's not a culture that is designed to be able to withstand conditions where they are surrounded. Shout out to Yaya Kids. Let's let the lady continue to speak.
30 years, and even before that, it was predominantly Black.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't a lot of Europeans actually like colonizing those places and staying there. Whereas in America, obviously, we're outnumbered by our oppressor.
Speak on it.
And a lot of our culture comes from that oppression.
That's right, baby.
I feel like that's what a lot of these predominantly Black countries don't get or understand.
Mm-hmm.
They know what it's like to be colonized, but they don't know what it's like to have to live with your oppressor every day.
Yes.
And to continue to be systemically oppressed by that group of people every
Okay, keep going, baby. Let's keep listening.
I was 400 years, 500 years ago. I'm telling you, I don't give a goddamn what this. Get the
No, it's African American.
You hear what he's saying? You hear what the African dude is saying? Just get over it. It's been 400 years. Slavery, no. Let me hopefully explain to you all. When you say 400 years, you're referring to 1419. That was when the first Africans, 20, were brought to Jamestown, Virginia. Okay, from 1419 to 1865, Black Americans, there was a condition of chattel slavery in this country. Okay, but there was also racial oppression. Now, after 1865, we went through roughly a decade of Reconstruction. All right. Now, after that, there was about 100 years of Jim Crow. Now, when we say Jim Crow, I know many of you are not familiar with American history. You're not familiar with Black American history. You just came over here when times got good. Okay. So you didn't experience what we had to experience, or our people had to experience, from 1865 to about 1965. Now, Uncle D was born in 1974. Okay. My mother was born in the 1950s. Many of these people who are watching here, they have grandparents who were around during Jim Crow. They have grandparents who were denied loans to purchase homes because they lived in places that were redlined. They have grandparents and grandfathers, and they know whose fathers fought in World War II and were not allowed to get the GI Bill. And they weren't allowed to get the GI Bill because they were Black. The GI Bill allowed servicemen who had come home from World War II to purchase homes in the middle class and save on money and educate their children. So they got a leg up. On top of that, there was a land grab that happened during that time period where the government opened up the West and say, hey, go on out West and stake a claim. Black people were prohibited from doing that. Now, it wasn't until 1965 that we started letting you folks from these other countries come in after we did away with that law. So you missed all that. We fought through that. Redlining. We fought through segregation, housing discrimination, education. All this is, see, so when we talk about 400 years ago, in reality, we talking more 55 years ago, okay? Which is not that long ago, just truthfully speaking. I mean, think about it. The 1980s was 45 years ago, okay? 1980 was 45 years. When I say 60 years ago, that's really not that much. So you all are highly uneducated on the subject, yet you are basically spewing these ignorant, you're not even spewing the intelligent white supremacist remarks. You are spewing the trailer park trash white supremacist remarks. Okay, the highly uneducated when you say 400 years ago. Not to mention the fact that we predated Columbus. We have been here since Abubakar and the other Africans came over here for the first time. We've been here. Somebody type, we've been here in the chat room. We've been here. Okay. Nevertheless, and I'm gonna go through this timeline again. You didn't have to deal with Red Summer and the race riots. We build things up, white folks get jealous and tear them down. They literally would go out and burn them down. Nevertheless, after 1965, the civil rights movement, we start getting rights. Folks start getting mad. So they said we cannot let a Black Messiah rise. And so they came up with things like COINTELPRO, and they used drugs. They pushed drugs into the community. They took all the opportunities out of the community. They used unions to keep Black people from joining the union. So look, you don't know what you're talking about. And now that you got a taste of what we're dealing with, and the worst they're going to do is send you back to the home that you came from. Now you want to hem and haw. But let's let this ignorant fool, excuse me for saying, continue to spew.
Africa versus African, Caribbean versus African. Every Black person of all over the world is against Africa. They know how powerful we.
Ain't nobody against Africa. What are you talking about? We're not against Africa. Most Black Americans romanticize Africa until we found out how cruel you were to us. I'm just saying, let's keep listening.
Can be if all Black color, this color right here, unite and be together.
We cannot unite with you all because you are disrespectful and ignorant and dismissive of foundational Black Americans. We are not like you all. The only thing we share is a similar ethnic background, and that's of multiple ethnic Black backgrounds that we have. So cut it out.
So I think when we start
moving towards having African Americans feel welcome into that space, as opposed to like, oh, well, you didn't like me back then, and you called me an African booty scratcher back then. So now
you call us African, we call these little kids call you African black booty scratchers, and y'all call them slaves. Which one is equal? You see? Let's keep it going.
I'm not, I don't like you, or so now you're lazy, or so now I'm better than you, or I'm here and you're there. Like, it doesn't help anybody.
Like, you have no right to tell me, oh, because I was called African booty scratcher, I should quote unquote have to get over that.
Well,
and to me, it's kind of offensive, just because who are you to tell me how I'm supposed to feel?
And see, here's another thing that Africans don't understand about Black American culture. Name calling, joining, capping, roasting, bagging is part of foundational Black American culture. It was designed to toughen you up and make you less sensitive to name calling. Because in this country where we live, where we are surrounded by people who want to do bad things to us, we cannot have someone who explodes and goes off because someone calls them the N-word. And so the thing about white folk, especially back in the day, they will come in and do what is called cull the bad blood. Okay, they wouldn't just unalive you; they would unalive your entire family. They would unalive your entire town. They would they would unalive your entire community. You see, this is what we did. So our kids capping on each other was designed to make them tougher. Because you don't know what a white man is going to call you, a white woman is going to. They had grown 80-year-old, 70-year-old men being called boy by little white boys and little white boy, get over there. Here's the 12-year-old. Shout out to Brolistic Sean. This is part of foundational Black American culture. Hell, Black kids call other Black kids African booty scratcher. We talk, this is what it went down. You can, if you go and you sit in an elementary school in any ghetto of America, you will get roasted from one side of your body to the other, from the top to the bottom. They will talk about your shoes, your clothes. Don't come to school with some Wranglers on and some Pro Wings. Don't ever come to school wearing the same thing you wore the day before. Don't wear your brother's or your sister's clothes. You will get capped on, roasted, bagged. You got to know how to deal with it. This is what we did. And so this African woman who's coming, I can't get over it. They call me an African booty. That's the least of which they could cut. The girl, they could have talked about every aspect of you with them little fake baby hairs you got coming off the top of your head. Get out of here. Keep going.
Well, Africans probably think African Americans are lazy because of X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not all Africans.
Keep listening.
It's not all Americans.
I personally took offense to this was that the reason that African men come and marry American women is because we are weak and easy to manipulate.
Even with American men, they look at African women as that you guys are malleable and easy to manipulate. And
on behalf of African American men, when the sister said we look at African women, we don't look at African women at all. I'm just going to be honest with you. There is no passport bro movement headed to Ghana. I'm just saying. Okay, I'm just keeping it 100 with you. Most foundational Black American men are extremely attracted to foundational Black American women. Okay? And in the instance where we cannot get a foundational Black American woman, the brothers are not flying to Nigeria to date Nigerian women. They are not flying to Ghana to date Ghanaian women. They're not doing it. I'm just going to keep it 100 with you. They will go to the Dominican Republic. They will go to Colombia. They will go to Brazil before they go to Ghana. They will be in Rio deep. They are not going to Accra. They don't care. They're not doing it. So, baby, I know you're trying to make them feel better. I'm on that, but that is not, they're going to zoom to Thailand. Okay, they will pass Africa straight up. Zoom, straight. They will fly over there, coach, 18 hours. Pass right by Lagos. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? They're not going there for that. Are you kidding me? Hell, no. Okay, somebody type no on behalf of, she went too far. I was trying to let the sister cook, but she went too far, baby. I've seen more Black men coming home with Dominican women and Colombian women. I ain't yet to see a group of brothers headed to, yeah, man, we going over here to, you gonna hang out the weekend in Lagos. No, we already know you're gonna get robbed in the airport anyway, okay? You gotta pay everybody to get out. No. So you stop it, baby. These are not equivalents. We like, I'm honest with you. We love foundational Black American women, especially the ones back when they was thin and fine, back in the 80s and 90s. They still had attitudes, but they was fine, okay? And the next best thing is some of these women in some of these other little countries nearby here. When I say here, I'm talking about America, nearby America, okay? We're not going to Africa to get African women, but let her go ahead and finish saying what she's saying. Go ahead, baby. Go ahead.
You know, impressed.
But now we got to go back to the root of all of this. It all comes from white people.
They're not all. Let's not say all. We're not here to generalize because we don't want to have.
This is why they don't have me on these little panels. They don't put Uncle D on these panels. I'm gonna say, baby, let me tell you something. I'm gonna be honest with you. I love you, my African queen from Africa. But you all have a different body odor. Okay, let me just keep it 100. This is what the brothers say. Just like y'all say stuff about us, I'm keeping 100 with you. Okay, that's not what Black American and foundational Black American men like foundational Black American women, because they have African features, but it's a little softer. Okay, and the forehead's a little shorter. Your forehead is too tall. Okay, your forehead is up here. Okay, your bangs are not. They you got a bald spot. That's not us. I'm just keeping 100 with you. Phenotypically, we like foundational Black American women or something close to that. Brothers, they'll go down to the Caribbean. They'll go get them some Latinas. They'll get some Afro-Latinas. They'll get some Colombians. They'll get some Brazilians. But they ain't no passport bro movement going to Africa. You need to cut it out. Anyway, let's keep going.
We're not here to generalize. Okay, but it's not true though.
But what I'm saying is that my immediate ancestors are American. Mine.
Are they Black?
They're Black, but they're not African. It's a difference. The white people have classified us all as coming from Africa because we're all Black.
But if what you're saying is true, then you are more Hispanic or Asian than you are Black.
And I said it's not just Africans, it's other ethnicities as well who think the same thing.
Yeah, and we are not African in the sense that we are not 100% sub-Saharan indigenous. No, that is not us. See, Black, when we say foundational Black American, it not only incorporates a shared history, shared ethnicity, but it's also a shared racial group. But it's an admixture that's unique to the United States. It's Native American, some it's a little Asian, it's European, it's African, okay? So don't try to bunch us. And on top of that, we have Black people who were here before the first Europeans got here, okay? I'm just saying now, you know, see, so you're not like us. You see, you can go ahead and be African, you be what you want to be. We've been here for centuries at this point. This is our homeland at this point. And we are not trying to go back to Africa, okay? Not the year of return, okay? We're not going back, okay? Keep listening.
It doesn't matter how it does. It just does.
I'm asking you.
It just makes it. It's just offensive. It's
African perspective.
Be offended, then, baby. Be offended. That's what you should be offended at, the plate of food that you've been eating too much of.
the 10 Africans right here. I'm gonna get the real answer.
They sitting up there dressed with the weave on. I mean, these women are sitting here cosplaying foundational Black Americans, talking about foundational Black Americans. This is not how Africans dress in the 1960s and 70s. Just think about it. Yeah, they don't let me on these channels. But we're going to go ahead and go ahead and we'll let one or two more play so I can continue laying this foundation. Okay?
Child, it's a lot of folk in my comments. Okay,
yeah.
so
we just, matter of fact, let's just go ahead and get this thing cracking. Look here, family. One of the first things I want to address is this sister that said, this African sister said, Black Americans are not, they say Black Africans are doing better in this country than Black folks who've been here. And that's just a flat out lie, okay? Let's stop lying to ourselves and telling these fairy tales about African success in America. The data doesn't lie. While Black Africans may come to the United States with higher levels of education, often more than any other immigrant group, they consistently earn less than their white and Asian and even Latino counterparts with comparable or lesser qualifications. This is not a coincidence. You know, this is the systematic exclusion, and is rooted in race, and it's never going to change in that regard. America doesn't care about your degrees when you look like us. You thought your accent would shield you, your last name would separate you, all them alphabets, vowels in your last name. You thought that would separate you from Black Americans? Huh? White folks don't see you any different. They don't want your big behind sitting in their nice offices. Shout out to Brolic Sean. They see you as Black. And unless you're one of the few who have broken through by becoming an entrepreneur, in other words, you work for yourself, okay? You own your own your labor and your own building and your own business. Chances are you are underpaid, overworked, and overlooked. See, that cushy job you thought your MBA or engineering degree would bring, all right, it's going to some less qualified white guy with legacy connections. And while you sit in silence, trying not to rock the boat, you're learning that the hard way, you see? And it's something that we've always known here. You will never outwork racism. Somebody type work harder in the chat room. You will never outwork racism. Somebody type work harder in the chat room. The Africans doing well here are the ones who stepped out of that system and created their own lanes. They didn't assimilate, they took control. Doctors, lawyers, okay? Until you realize that you're gonna keep blaming Black Americans for your failures while suffering the same fate we fought for generations to overcome. So look here, let's talk some numbers, okay? And I have some clips, not really necessarily clips, but I have some documents that I want you guys to see. And for you guys who are checking this out on the rebroadcast, there are the links in the chat room, okay? All right, the links in the chat room. There's a study that came out in 2019, okay? And it's from the American Community Survey, and it's a peer-reviewed article. And the article is entitled Dimensions of Inequality, Black Immigrants, Occupational Segregation in the United States. It's by Rebecca Tesfai and Kevin J.A. Thomas. And it reveals a persistent and troubling phenomenon in the American labor market. Despite having among the highest levels of educational attainment, Black African immigrants are consistently undercompensated, underemployed, and underrepresented in low mobility occupations. Okay? So as of 2019, here's some stats. I want y'all to hear me. The median income for households led by sub-Saharan African immigrants. Now, I'm not talking about Foundation Black Americans, right? The median income is $58,000. That puts them behind all immigrant households, which is 64,000, okay? Now, keep in mind, US-born households make 66,000. The variation among African national origin groups is very different. When we talk about South Africans, they make 111,000, Kenyans 70,000, Somalis 32,000. They darn near living in poverty. And see, these figures reflect not only national origin, but also the stratified access to opportunity. You see what I'm saying? Now check this out. Approximately 17% of sub-Saharan Africans who come to this country live below the poverty line. Think about that. And the poverty line as of 2019 was $25,750 for a family of four. So you got family of four, making $25,000, about $26,000 a year. Now compare that to all immigrants. 14% of all immigrants and 12% of US-born citizens live below the poverty line. Think about that. These are Africans, okay? These are Africans. And when you start breaking it down, when you look at Somalis, for instance, they have the highest rate. 37% of them live below the poverty line. As far as Cameroonians and Liberians, 9% of them, they're doing better. You see? So when these Africans start talking about how well they're doing, it's just untrue. Now, the thing is, when you talk about sub-Saharan Africans that have had a naturalization rate, they come in 56% of them get naturalized. That's above the 52% of the average foreign-born resident. So more of them get citizenships than others, okay? But let's skip ahead to occupation. And to this study, and I'm actually gonna put this in here. I want you guys to see it. You guys can screenshot it. This is actual factual stuff. It's not me making this up. Okay? Africans and Caribbeans are over concentrated in a very narrow set of jobs. Okay? And it echoes a pattern seen among Hispanic immigrants. But they face greater occupational segregation from white workers than US-born black. They're not getting hired, is what I'm telling you. They give them a certain group of jobs they can do, but they're not getting hired. African immigrants in particular are the most segregated, even more so than Caribbean counterparts. In other words, nobody wants to hire them. In this regard, they are more occupationally isolated than US-born black workers. Now, they always talk about these STEM degrees. Let me tell you you could wipe your butt with one of these STEM degrees. If you're an African, you assume that they would be protected because they have these quote unquote high value degrees. Okay? They have experience, you see, but all that does is penalize them. African immigrants are more likely to hold a STEM degree than other immigrants or US-born folks, yet they receive lower salaries and less occupational mobility compared to similarly educated folks from Europe, Asia, and Latin America. And what this tells us is that these degrees are devalued in the US labor market. Okay? If you're an African, this is an African immigrant paradox. This situation gives rise to what scholars call, or should I say, a Black African immigrant paradox. It's a contradiction between high educational attainment and low economic return. Shout out to Brolisky. Now, look at the Hispanics. They have lower education and higher poverty. Or Asian immigrants, they have high education and lower poverty. Black immigrants, they have high levels of education and disproportionately high poverty. So when they start saying stuff like they're doing well, it's just not true. It is absolutely not true, and you need to cut them on that lie. We need to stop pretending. This isn't just a conversation, okay? This is real, all right? This is the diaspora war, and they started it. But they started this. And so now we're going to call them out on it. Yes, African immigrants, particularly Nigerians and Ghanaians and Kenyans, they tend to be highly educated, but education without power means nothing. And in the US, your degrees aren't translating to economic dominance. You all like to pretend you have. Okay? Again, according to the American Community Survey and the peer-reviewed article, Dimensions of Inequality, American Immigrants, Occupational Segregation in the United States, and I'm gonna put this right here for you all to look at so you can be mad. Read this. African immigrants are the most educated among all immigrants, yet they have the most underpaid and underemployed. You understand me? You all do worse than Black Americans who you claim to be superior to. We average more income and have less formal education. And see, here's the thing. You're not just underpaid, you're locked out. The labor market in America sees your degrees and still shoves you into low mobility jobs. African immigrants are more occupationally segregated than white folks and US born people. Think about that. Those STEM degrees you have, you can hold on to them because they're going to give a Mexican or European or Asian that job before they give it to you. Meanwhile, you posture online about being these model black immigrants, right? You tell everybody you're earning more, right? But you're not. Black Americans earn more than you, and we have less credentials. We occupy more powerful positions socially and politically. And here's the cold part about it. We're the ones that fought for the civil rights structure that gave you the right to be here in the first place. You didn't build this, you benefited from it. That's a big difference. And let me break something else for you. Shout out to Top G. This is a hierarchy. This hierarchy is not new. It traces back to the plantation caste system during slavery. American-born black people were the most sought after. Caribbeans were second tier. Africans were dead last. You're often viewed as less adaptable, less civilized, and therefore less valuable. You don't have to like what I'm saying. This is our history. Now, what you all have done is fake like you're black and you learn to assimilate, which is why you might have some long African name, but they'll call you John Tate. Okay, you got your American name and your African name. That's how slick you all have become. Somebody type slick in the chat room. See, some of you all have become slick and you've learned to assimilate wearing your baseball caps. Because you know we can tell that you're not foundational black American by looking at your forehead. You know, I've told y'all before, I can look at a forehead and tell you where a person is from. Okay? So anyway, that legacy continues. Many of you try to hide your African identity and you take on black American culture, then you want to turn around and look down on the very people whose identity you appropriate to blend in. This is why we call ourselves foundational black Americans, and we're getting away from African American. See, you don't come here proudly waving your flag, you code switch, you mimic, you disguise yourself, and then after you get a few nickels to rub together, you call yourself supreme. That's cowardice, not confidence. See, real people come as they are. Courageous folk come as they are. We made white America accept us for who we are. And that's why we still have our dignity. We're not over here faking and fraud and trying to be somebody else. You came to the house that was already built, and now you want to act like you own it. We built the economy you now participate in. We fought for the rights that you now enjoy. We created the cultural engine you now imitate. But instead of showing respect, some of you, not all, but it's enough of y'all come here with inflated egos and false pride and absolutely no historical context. And that's going to end right now. Now, another thing I want to address, they love telling us we lazy, don't they? Matter of fact, the whole country has been calling us lazy since we stopped working for free. You guys understand what I'm saying? Black Americans are lazy. Now, nevertheless, I'm going to put this link in the chat room and it's going to take you to blackdemographics.com. Okay? Blackdemographics.com. Shout out to April Love. Blackdemographics.com has the following illustration up. Okay? Let me see if I can pull this up. I want you all, each and every one of you all, to see this. Who's the hardest working group of people? Who's the hardest working group of men in America? Who is the hardest working group of men in America? Who works the most hours of all men in America, according to blackdemographics.com? What group of men are the hardest working group of men in America? Black American men working 43 hours a week. Black American, white men 42.6, Asian 41.8, Hispanic 41.5. So this is the truth. You understand me? And you can go right over there to blackdemographics.com and get this information for yourself. So let's cut to the truth. Because see, too many people, particularly African and Caribbeans, have been parroting the oldest and most insidious white supremacist talking point there is, and that is Black Americans are lazy. That lie didn't come from your lived experience, Caribbean folk and African folk. It didn't come from facts. It was fed to you by the same system that oppressed Black Americans for centuries. Why? Because it's psychological warfare. White supremacy doesn't just oppress, it manipulates. It tells newly arrived Black Africans and Caribbeans, don't be like them. They're lazy. They're criminals. They're entitled. Not because it's true, you see, but because it tricks you all into working harder and overcompensating and seeking white validation while stepping over the people who laid the very foundation you now benefit from. It's not a compliment, it's a setup. See, don't believe it. Okay? Here's a reality. Let's do the numbers. According to blackdemographic.com, which cites the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Black men work the most hours per week for any group of men in America. Weekly average work hours, full-time workers, 43 hours a week. White men, 42.6 hours a week. Asian men, 41.8 hours a week. Hispanic men, 41.5 hours a week. So when Africans and Caribbeans come to America and smugly claim to work harder than Black Americans, what exactly are you basing that on? Shout out to Father of Many Nations. Because see, that data says you're wrong. See, according to the US Census, right, Black men's employment rate ages 25 to 64 increases from 66% to 69%. Unemployment dropped from 6% to 5%. Now, you do have 25% of Black men not in the labor force, and that's overall is 16% of all men not in the labor force. But see, what they're not including and what those men don't necessarily have to deal with is the fact that, well, they do have to deal with the fact that some men are in school, some are disabled, some are incarcerated, and some are not seeking work. But see, we also had to deal with the structural barriers and the redlining and the discrimination and the mass incarceration, which left many of our Black brothers with felonies and locked them out of the job market. So if they lose their job, they can't necessarily readily get right back in. Nevertheless, Black men are still showing up. We're still grinding, and we still outworking all of y'all. You understand me? And so I want you to think about that. And the cold part about it is the percentage of unemployed working age Black Americans is statistically about equal to white folks, even though the system hits Black communities with every disadvantage. Now, where are we working? Somebody type Black jobs in the chat room. The Black jobs, 29% of Black men work in production, transportation, and material moving jobs. Keep in mind, it's 19% of men overall. Shout out to Lance Jackson. We overrepresented in that area. 32% of Black men or Black workers are in management, business, science, and arts and occupation. That includes the sisters. Okay? And they gain from previous years, especially for Black women. Service jobs remain, we're overrepresented. Among Black men, it's 20%, Black women, 25%. Okay? And they're not giving us those jobs. We're not lazy people. These are what society permits us to do. These are the Black jobs. And see, when the immigrants go, we can get those jobs back. Nevertheless, despite the overrepresentation, right? Black men still, we're underrepresented in some of the white collar leadership roles, but we dominate in critical sectors in logistics, manufacturing, transportation. So not only are we doing these jobs, we're necessary. Bottom line is this. This lie was designed to divide. White supremacy crafted that lie that Black Americans are lazy to divide the diaspora. It uses the lie to make you all think, right? You all think, well, I don't want to be like those Black Americans. So they have you working till you're exhausted, chasing their validation because you don't want to seem like you those Black Americans. It told you to look down on the very people who fought for the rights you now take for granted. You didn't get affirmative action. We did. You didn't dismantle Jim Crow. We did. You didn't build the labor rights movement. We did. You didn't fight for civil rights, voting rights, housing rights. You walked into a house that was built, and you're not fighting for anything now. So instead of saying thank you, you let this racist lie convince you that you're better than us. And see, you need to be, let's be absolutely clear here. Black American men in America are the hardest working group of men in the country. Black Americans are not lazy. We're survivors. We're builders. We're warriors. Shout out to Ghostwriter. And if you're repeating the lazy lie, you're not just misinformed, you've been used. You understand me? And the cold part about it is Black folk know this. All I got to say this. Let me tell you what we know to be true. All right? We know it's true. All I got to do is type Willie Lynch. And every Black person in this chat room, every foundational Black person in this chat room already knows what I'm talking about. When I type Willie Lynch, they'll let you know already what it was and the story behind it. Because see, all this is an old tactic from an old playbook. So back in the day, they would try to cast Northern Blacks against Southern Blacks and city Blacks against country Blacks and light-skinned Blacks against dark-skinned Blacks and Black men against Black women and old Black folk against young Black folk. That's the Willie Lynch letter. It's a foundational tool of the plantation system. It's a philosophy that taught enslavers how to manipulate racial hierarchy to divide Black unity and exploit our labor. And here's what happened. It worked, especially among diaspora Africans and Caribbeans. They made you all work yourself to death. It's a whole bunch of Caribbeans right down there in South Florida, cleaning toilets for white folk, bathing old white people. You out there wiping crusty white people's booties, talking about you outwork Black. We ain't doing it. Old retired white folk from New York come down there and they got all those nice Caribbean people to wipe their booties up. That's what you're working. That's the hard work they got you doing. And you doing it. And you say, I'm better than those Black people as you wiping, cleaning urine pans. I'm telling the truth. Fort Lauderdale. Go down to Fort Lauderdale. Nothing but Caribbeans. Every day they take public transportation to some old white person's house to clean their booties off and change their bedpans. You swear up and down you better than us. Look, white supremacy doesn't just want your labor, it wants your devotion. And by telling Africans and Caribbeans that Black Americans are lazy, they created a psychological trap. You've been tricked, okay? As the brother Malcolm said, you've been hoodwinked, you've been bamboozled, you've been led astray. You're working past your limits. Okay, somebody type work harder. Believing that you're a good Black. Somebody type good Black in the chat room. You seeking validation from white folk. Look at me. I've made more. I'm better than them. But here's the truth. Your work isn't measured in hours or dollars, and working harder doesn't mean you're succeeding. It means you're giving your best to a system that's built to exploit you, and when it's done with you, it's gonna get rid of you. Work harder. Huh? Look at the history of the United States. Most of y'all don't know. What happens when your community thrives as a person of color? You build your strong neighborhoods. You invest in real estate. You build businesses. You're making it. We've seen that, right? Because see, the same people who broke up Black Wall Street in Red Summer come through to destroy, seize, deport, and shut down your whole world. I guess y'all must have missed that lesson. And you're doomed to play the same part again as the hardworking pawn, not the power-holding player. Let's investigate. In 1919, Red Summer, you all missed all that. Red Summer was the punishment for black success. See, after World War II or after World War I, black men returned home as veterans. They were armed, they were trained, and they no longer content with second-class citizenship. And so in dozens of cities across the U.S., from Chicago to Washington, D.C. to Elaine, Arkansas, white mobs, often supported by law enforcement, just found reasons just to attack black communities. They unalive men, women, and children. They burn down homes and businesses. Why? Because black Americans had started to prosper and organize and assert ourselves. Black people had built up thriving businesses and real estate holdings and newspaper schools and mutual aid societies. And they did this during Reconstruction and afterwards. These are the same folk in 1919. You still had white folk alive who fought in the Civil War and had slaves. And now they're looking up and they seeing all these black folk doing well for themselves. How do you think that made them feel with that sick psychosis of white supremacy that they have? See, racism is not about racism. Racism is centered around anti-black racism. Everything else is racism light. The heart and crux of it is anti-black racism. But see, success, especially when it's black success, challenges the notions of that white supremacists lie that says we are inferior. More importantly, they are superior. See, when black men came home with dignity, with uniforms, with pride, it shattered the illusion of white superiority, and white America lashed out. You see what I'm saying? Our brothers came home from World War I as veterans, proud, trained, okay? And that triggered these white folk, and they lashed out. And whether we talking about Tulsa, 1921, Black Wall Street, in the Greenwood district, where you had a thriving community of black lawyers and doctors and banks and schools, one single false accusation led to a white mob leveling the place in 24 hours. Hundreds of black people killed. Hell, from 1877 to 1865, you had something called Jim Crow, which was state-sanctioned repression. The laws were against us. We had to fight against that. Even up into the Civil Rights Movement, for 100 years after slavery, we had to fight. Hell, post-civil rights, you had the FBI dismantling black movements and pumping drugs into the community. And we had to deal with mass incarceration. Joe Biden and his foolishness. So it wasn't just Red Summer, it didn't end right there. And now, what do we see happening to these immigrants? What do you think? In 2025, Trump's immigration policy, it's nothing but a revived tactic. Do you know they are now fining immigrants who stay past their time period $998 a day? If your visa expires after a deportation order, the government can now seize your property, your bank accounts, your access, and it's retroactive for 5 years. This isn't enforcement. It's done to strip away their wealth. This is the modern day Black Wall Street right now. This is the modern day Red Summer. This is what's happening. It sounds familiar, right? This is Trump's policy. It's the same as burning down homes and businesses to send a message. You are never truly safe here. So y'all go right on ahead and work harder. Somebody type work harder in the chat room. See, work harder isn't the answer. That's why Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, laughed at all you immigrants when you told us we were lazy and when you told us to work harder. We laughing at you. but you're going to learn today. See, this is something Black Americans learned decades ago. Building community doesn't protect you unless you build power too. Working more doesn't buy you safety unless you're also protected by collective rights. White validation is a trap. It distracts from the real work, political leverage, community self-determination, owning your narrative, and the willingness to whoop ass when necessary. I said it, excuse my French, family friendly, okay? See, what you actually need to survive and thrive is to stop worshiping the system that doesn't reward Black excellence. It harms it, it uses it, it discards it. See? That's what it is. See, you should have united with foundational Black American communities while you had the chance. This isn't optional, it's essential. See, you needed the shared power, not the borrowed legacy. See, before Columbus, our ancestors were here thriving. You're not adding to this story. You're entering into a continuum that stretches back millennia. You understand me? Now, this is what you have going on right now. From 1968 onward, we fought and we bled and we did jail time for civil rights. But what happened after that? They ran highways through our neighborhoods. The FBI destroyed black leadership and organizations. We had to deal with the onslaught of drugs that were pumped into to America, to the Black community. Shout out to Alonzo Dunn. And they got our people addicted. They penalized them with mass incarceration. Drugs and mass incarceration replaced the whips and the chains. Why? Because we became a threat, because we marched and demanded and died for rights, and we actually started using them. And that's when the white establishment said, too much, shut it down. But see, now this time, the new red summer is this. They're coming for immigrants. You came to America, you worked harder, you bought homes, you opened up businesses, you educated your kids. You call it the American dream. See, we were first. You all keep telling us we were next. We were first, and now it's your turn. All that money you made, all that success you had, them white folks want it back. This is not about the law. It's not about law and order. It's a playbook that's been used before on us. And we tried to told you, but you didn't want to hurt us. That's why you had all them black folks voting for Kamala Harris, which was on its face against our interests. See, white supremacy has always survived by dividing folk, especially black folk, and then reaping what they've built. And see, these are some lessons that you all should have learned, but you didn't. Look, let's just keep it 100 when we start talking about these silly things you're saying. You call black folks lazy. And we outwork every group. In labor, hours, and sacrifice. We built independent economies. We dominated culture, sports, and intellect. We sent our men to war for a country that never loved us. And they still firebombed and imprisoned us and sabotaged us and lied on us. Because hard work isn't what threatens the system. Black autonomy is. And autonomy only comes from unity and protection and power, not approval. You thought proving you weren't lazy like us Black Americans would earn you a seat at the table. It would get you a pat on the head. But guess what? That table, that was never a table, family. It was a trap. And now you're the next Greenwood, the next Red Summer. Except this time the flames aren't digital. They're frozen accounts, fines, deportations, and asset seizure. That's what it is. The playbook hadn't changed. You just walked into chapter 2 thinking you were different. Now, here's the other thing I want to talk about. And this is very similar to what the Africans are dealing with. The truth is about these Latinos and whatnot. And and shout out to everybody contributing to super chats. I'm going to read each and every one when I finish. But you see, I'm in my zone. Okay. I want to remind the Latino immigrants that you all thought that it would be black people who would be deported, didn't you? Tell the truth. That's what y'all thought. You thought it was going to be black people who were being deported. Shout out to Father of Many Nations. Because, see, we can never let these Latino immigrants forget. If somebody type Latinos for Trump in the chat room, come on, somebody type Latinos for Trump in the chat room. We want to keep that going. Okay, we want to keep that going. We want to remind them, shout out Barry Little, Latinos for Trump in the chat. Let's remind them as they ask us to come on out there and jump in front of those rubber bullets from ICE. Latinos for Trump. You all voted for Trump because you thought he was going to deport black people, specifically Latino immigrant, especially the men. They proudly voted for Trump. They thought they would cast the ballot to watch black people get deported. Okay, the bad ones, right? Y'all brought this situation on yourself with this mass deportation. In 2024, nearly half of Latino voters, 46% voted for Trump, and even higher, 54% of Latino men backed Trump. What they didn't understand was many still refuse to understand, that black Americans, foundational black Americans are not immigrants. In fact, foundational black Americans were here before the country was even a nation. And on top of that, we built this country from the ground up. We've spilled blood for every right we've had. And we fought in every war that this country has waged. You can't deport us. You never could. But now the same system you fed with your votes is devouring you. In 2025, Trump signed an executive order 14159 to launch the most aggressive mass deportation campaign in modern U.S. history. You see what they're doing? ICE is raiding farms. You see what they just raided that marijuana farm out there in California? They raiding factories, they raiding sanctuary cities and neighborhoods. And the arrests have skyrocketed from 300 a day to 1,000 a day. Now they're up to 3,000 a day. And per Trump's new BBL, somebody type big beautiful bill. Okay, it's no longer a bill, so it's a law now. So instead of a big beautiful bill, a BBB, shout out to my man Robert Brown. Now it's the BBL. So now that Trump's BBL is in effect, they want 7,000 per day. That's a little under 8 million people they're trying to get up out of here in the next 3.5 years. 8 million. These are people with no criminal records. They're being yanked out of their homes and workplaces and schools. They're being loaded into ICE airplanes and dumped like cargo. Their bank accounts frozen, property seizes, families destroyed. They even had a person who was unalived on a cannabis farm, was unalived in Southern California during the raid. See, this is not about immigration enforcement, folks. This is Red Summer, okay, 2025. That's what's going on right now. See, it's not about safety. It's about state-sanctioned racial and economic control. And the Latinos voted for this. They voted for this. Somebody typed Latinos for Trump. If you thought working harder would save you, hopefully you woke up. I doubt it. See, that's the same lie they told us. They lured you into this trap with anti-black propaganda. That's what they did. And then they convinced you to turn on us. And now they're turning on you. See, this is the Willie Lynch playbook. It's modernize, it's divide, you oppress, turn the hopeful into informants, use the promise of proximity to whiteness to pit them against you. Okay? Same thing they did with the House N-words and the fill-in words. They gave the fill-in word a couple more butter biscuits and cornbread, and they treated the fill. And he went to the house N-word snitched on everybody. Anytime there was an uprising, the house nigga would tell it so he can stay in the house. Get him some old clothes and hot water cornbread. They use that proximity to whiteness to pit you against your own brothers and sisters. They just want you to think you made it. And then they take it all back. You see? So all the Latinos, just understand this. You didn't vote. You didn't vote to deport us. You voted to deport yourselves and your own people. And now you in that fire. Now, Black Americans are not immigrants. This is something that these African and Caribbean immigrants seem to think. We didn't come here chasing the so-called American dream. We didn't beg for citizenship, visas, refugee status. We didn't show up at the southern border. We didn't show up at Ellis Island or fly in on work permits. We were dragged here in chains and we built the damn country. And before that, we were here already. Our presence in North America, the Caribbean, and Central America and South America predates Columbus. That's not hyperbole. That's historical reality, okay? And it's far too much of it to ignore. This land was never discovered in 1492. It was already populated with indigenous nations and African people trading with them and building and living long before the Europeans ever touched this shore. And I'm talking about the Vikings who came here in Nova Scotia before Trump. Let's talk more about pre-Columbian. Let's go into Mansa Musa, Mansa Musa's predecessor, Abubakar II. He was the ruler of Mali. And it is believed that he launched a fleet of thousands of ships, I believe 2,000 ships, and traveled across the Atlantic in the early 13th century. Oral tradition, 1311 and 1313. Oral tradition says, and it's supported by African historians and Arab historians, the ships actually reached the America. This isn't science fiction. It's part of our global legacy. Okay? From the trace Zapots, the stoneheads in Central American, they describe these black-skinned visitors carrying guanine spears. That's a West African alloy. And the evidence is there if you just stop denying it. There are Western archaeologists that want to cling to these white supremacist notion that there's no proof. There it is. The proof is right there. Look at that big rock shaped like a black man's face. They say the same thing about pyramids. You would swear you believe, they would have you believe that Egypt is in Europe somewhere, and it is right there in Africa, where all the black people are, bordered by some of the blackest people that ever lived on the planet in the Sudan. That you want to have us believe that these people were European. Even after Columbus brought Africans with him. We didn't just show up in shackles. We fought, we resisted, and we carved out our own place. There was a man named Juan Garrido. He was a Bantu warrior turned conquistador. He arrived in Florida in 1513. He fought alongside the Spaniards. Remember, the Spaniards and the Moors had to deal with each other for about 800 years. And the Moors were black largely. We didn't just witness conquest, we survived and we shaped it. Look, let's clear up another lie. Black history in America did not begin in 1619. And it damn sure didn't start with slavery. You understand me? The year shout out to Curly Locks. The year 1619 is often cited as at the beginning of the black presence in the United States because that's when approximately 20 Africans were brought to an English colony in Virginia named Jamestown. But even that story is misunderstood. First of all, Those Africans were seized from a Portuguese slave ship, not some factory line slave exploitation in West Africa. And more importantly, they were not the first black people in what is now the United States. There were free black people already living in the living in these colonies in 1619, particularly along the Spanish-controlled Gulf Coast of Florida and in areas influenced by French and Portuguese. We're already there. They were artisans, they were craftsmen, they were farmers, they were builders, they were translators, they were sailors, they were traders. Some had married into the indigenous and European families and communities. They were treated, and you know, at least legally, as free citizens. Even in Jamestown, when they brought the black Africans to Jamestown, the records show that some of those early Africans were not enslaved for life. Some gained their freedom. Some owned property. One of the most famous early Africans in Virginia was a man named Anthony Johnson. He arrived as an indentured servant. He gained his freedom and eventually owned land, and he even had indentured servants of his own. Shout out to Kiki Queen. And the truth be told, there was black people that owned slaves too. They was over there at the slave auction too, buying Africans fresh off the boat. Foundational black Americans. The narrative is complex. It's not convenient. And it's certainly not what American textbooks have taught. Now let's fast forward to 1776. That is the birth of the United States. Back then, there weren't 50 states. There were 13 colonies, and these 13 colonies who were under the control of Europe, of Great Britain or England, declared we are independent from Britain. And even then, black people were present in both the North and the South. Okay? You understand? The northern colonies, the southern colonies, if that's what you want to call them, we were here. Many were enslaved, but tens of thousands were free. And at the point where the country became the United States of America, the northern states like Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New York, they had free black communities that thrived, had open churches, they had running businesses and fighting in the Revolutionary War. Yes, black people fought for this country's independence, even when they weren't guaranteed a piece of it. Now let's fast forward to 1865. At the end of the Civil War, the Emancipation Proclamation had been issued in 1863 by the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. There were 4.4 million black people in the United States. Of those 4.4 million black people, 500,000 were free people before the war ended. That's 11% of the entire population. They were free and they had always been free. Some had bought their freedom. Some were here before. It just came from families that were free. Let that sink in. Not all black people were enslaved. Even at the height of the institution of slavery, we have free black landowners, legislators, educators, inventors, clergies, and entrepreneurs. So this narrative, family, that all black Americans descended exclusively from slaves is both incomplete and dishonest. Now, I will say this. Virtually all of us who are here today in 2025 have enslaved ancestors. That's a fact. Okay? But we also have ancestors that were free and never were slaves. And if you go back far enough, you can find them. Some who were free long before the Civil War, long before the Revolution, even before Jamestown. Difficult to find records, but if you look, you might find them. You might need to speak Spanish and Portuguese. Going down there to Florida. But the thing is, when people try to boil our history down to shackles and plantations, remember, we were builders, we were warriors, we were sailors, we were leaders. Before this country was even founded. We didn't just survive. Okay, that's what I need you to understand. We shaped the nation from dirt up. So again, for the hard-headed and willfully ignorant, and I know you're out there, Black Americans are not immigrants. We are not guests. We are not here on borrowed time. We are the roots. And if you try to deport us, you'll learn what this country has learned over and over again. And that is that foundational Black Americans will fight. We always have and we always will. See, Africans and Caribbeans come to the United States and they try to lump us in with every other immigrant group. Y'all need to check yourself. We are not you. We've been here. We've been bleeding and building and fighting for our survival long before your passport got stamped. And when you vote for people who you think will deport all immigrants, thinking that includes us, you reveal just how deeply you've swallowed these white supremacist lies, because see, you forget, again, we're not immigrants, we're the foundation. And you can't deport people who are already rooted in the soil. I mean, you could try it if you want to, but you need to understand, we will not be deported. And if you try, you might just die. Because we fought at every war in this country. We fought every system that tried to erase us, and we still here. See, then there are those who use who were those of us and our ancestors who were brought here in chains, shackled and whipped, bought and sold, and forced to build this country from the foundation up. Our ancestors were the bricks and the mortar, the sweat, the screams, the blood beneath America's economy, railroad, agriculture, and military dominance. We are not immigrants. We are the core stock of this nation. See? Now, why does that matter? Why does all that matter? You can't deport us. See, foundational Black Americans belong here. See, deportation isn't just illegal, it is impossible. We will resist. Somebody type, we will resist in the chat room. This land was built with our rebellion. You understand me? From the Seminoles down in Florida to Nat Turner's uprising, we have never bowed. See, hard work alone isn't protection. We know the pattern. Black excellence is met with backlash from Tulsa to Trump's current raids. Black Americans are the original Americans. We predate the Constitution, the Mayflower, the Columbus. Everybody else is saying, I'm an Irish American. I'm a Italian American. I'm a Polish American. We Black American. We right here. See, the rest of the diaspora, you arrived later. You came here by choice. We didn't leave. We stayed. We built. We bled. We're never going to leave. See, remember this. You didn't come to America. You came to us. Because, see, without us being here, there wouldn't be America for you to come to. This would be a white ethno state. Shout out to David Johnson. Now, let's talk a little bit more about this deportation fantasy related to foundational Black Americans. See, some immigrants, especially those from Latin America, they voted for Trump under the mistaken belief that Black Americans are just another immigrant group. And they thought they would round us up and ship us out like some undocumented workers. And they were wrong. Where you going to send us to? You going to send us to Ghana? You going to send us to Nigeria? You going to send us to Haiti? You going to send us to Liberia? We don't belong there. We've been here longer than your last 5 generations combined. Our culture is here. Our bones are buried in this land. We didn't cross the border crossed us. And if you think any president, or political party, or regime is going to exile foundational Black Americans from the land we cultivated and protected and died for, then you are delusional. Black Americans and white Americans have lived alongside each other for centuries. I want you to listen to this very carefully. Listen to me. We have been here together for centuries. White folk, black folk. Where all the white folk at? Where all the black Americans at? We've never had peace per se. We've had an understanding. A blood-soaked battlefield forged type of understanding. They know that we will fight. Not whine, not beg, not plead, fight. That's what makes foundational black Americans different from every other group in this country, including the Africans and the Caribbean immigrants. You came here to blend in. We're born here to resist. You came here seeking approval. We've spent generations fighting to survive in a country that has tried to erase us and fail. You wonder why black Americans seem so violent. It's because America is violent. And the only people who've truly learned how to survive its violence are us. You don't get freedom in this country by being polite. You get it by bleeding for it. In this country, you got to shed blood for advancement. You got to shed blood for freedom. That is our inheritance. That is in our genetic code. That is why any fantasy about deporting us will end in chaos and war and civil war and riots and every other thing you can think of. See, some of these Latino folks are drunk off propaganda and they misinformed and they're arrogant. You got Haitian people saying, oh, they're going to come for the foundational black Americans. No, they're not. They might try it. But we are Americans. We embody the American spirit. We will fight for our rights. You cast that vote under the illusion that foundational black Americans were just some other group to be erased. You can't deport the soil. See, your problem is you thought white supremacy was your ally. It turns out you were the next in line. But we've been here and we've been through it. We did it before the Constitution was written, before the white immigrants set foot on Ellis Island, before half the white people walking around today had a last name that meant something on American soil. And while we've never had true peace between us, what we have is an understanding. You see? These white folk know deep down in their bones that foundational black Americans will fight, and we will, and it ain't gonna be pretty. Period. See, the thing is, the vast majority of these white folks that are here right now spitting all this rhetoric, from that little boy with the little Spanish sounding last name, I think he's Italian. The vast majority, I forget his name. What's the little racist, little short, little pipsqueak Italian dude with the Spanish last name? What's his name? I forget his name. But the vast majority of these so-called white Americans, the Italians, the Irish, the Polish, the Eastern European, they just got here. Their ancestors stepped off the boat at Ellis Island barely a century ago in the early 1900s. Meanwhile, I was already been here plowing field. Nick Fuentes, that's the little fella's name. Up there trying to get likes and giggles. We were part of the Union Army. We built the railroads. We built the towns from scratch. Their ancestors couldn't even speak English, and we were already here working. They had them huddled in ghettos. They were out here trying to escape. The white folks was out here trying to escape famine and fascism, while I was already here on American soil, managing, building families and businesses and communities under unsurmountable pressure. Here's the kicker. When those groups arrived, they weren't even considered white. Italian, they spit on the Italian. They called them swarty, which means dark. They treated the Irish, they literally called the Irish monkeys and subhuman. And the Eastern Europeans, they suspected them of being, they were just suspect. They were uneducated. They were foreign. They were racially discriminated against too, until one day white America just let them in. Okay? They got their honorary white card, and the first thing they did was try to look down on us. The very people who struggled made room for theirs. We literally adopted the Irish. We embraced the Italians. We let them in. Look at the history of the blacks and the Italians when they first got here. So the next time some of you newly minted Americans tell us to go back to Africa, remind them folk that our ancestors didn't just stumble off the boat a generation ago. We didn't just cross the ocean. We were dragged across it. And some of us been here. Shh. We've always fought. And we still will. You try to deport black Americans if you want to. Let the first brother or sister find, shout out to Kenneth Marlowe, let the first brother or sister find out y'all trying to get us up out of here. We're not playing these games. And this country knows exactly who we are and what we will do if pushed to the edge. We're not new to this. We didn't just resist with marches and speeches. We've taken arms, burned cities, seized weapons, and fought battles on our own soil against our presence. Here's just a few examples. You guys, 1811, German Coast Uprising down in Louisiana, the biggest slave revolt in U.S. history. You had 500 black men who took up weapons and organized a march toward New Orleans. The goal was the complete overthrow of the slave system. This is 1811. White folk was terrified. Can you imagine if that had caught on? They sent the militia down there to suppress it. But this was only after dozens of white folk and slave owners had been unalived on these sugar plantations. Burn them to the ground. That's 1811. Shout out to David John. They know us. They don't teach that. They don't want you to know that's what you all was really doing. Even way back in 1739, something called the Stono Rebellion. More than 20 black men, led by an Angolan warrior named Jimmy, raided the store, armed themselves, and marched while chanting liberty. This is what, look, man. They unalived the slave holders and recruited other black men, and they rose up. The colonial government, the British colonial government had to impose the Negro Act of 1740 to suppress any further uprisings. Then if we go to 1741, this is 1741, before the country was even a country, New York City, 100 black people, okay, were accused of conspiring to burn the city down and unalive all the rich white folks. It was some white people involved in that. They end up hanging 17 black men who to try to set an example, they burned them alive. 13 were burned alive. 30. Whether or not the conspiracy was real or not, the reaction is a testament to how fearful these folks were of black uprising. And we don't need to talk about Nat Turner, 1831. This man got together with his followers, black preacher, Nat Turner, and unalived 60 white folk in a few days. These are people with no education, no transportation, no communication, and no real weapons. Because God told them to do it. That brought about a lot more harsher black codes, but it was also a declaration. We will never be docile. You don't think they know this? You don't think they teach this in these military academies? And if we want to talk about the black Seminoles, black folks that escaped from Georgia and South Carolina and ran down into Florida and hid out with the swamps in the Seminole Nation, they fought black 3 full-blown wars against the U.S. government. I mean, they fought the whole might of the U.S. military. These weren't protests. These were guerrilla warfare campaigns. You never hear about this. They never, ever, ever want to tell black folks our real history and what we did. These weren't protests. This was hand-to-hand. These were, look, the U.S. sent thousands of military men. They sent thousands into these swamps, in these forests to try to put down these black freedom fighters. And they kept getting their butts kicked. They kept on getting their butts kicked. They were so afraid to give black men arms. The Union Army said, man, we don't want to get these dudes. We just finished fighting these dudes. We don't want to give them weapons. But they had to give, the Union Army had to give black men, enlist black men into the war so they could win. Shout out to Still Solid. And when they open up the doors to allow black men to come in and fight on behalf of the Union, 200,000 black men showed up. Former slave, black men who were never slaves, educated black men, all showed up. See, we are not passive. This was not about assimilation. This was about war. Don't mistake our struggle for sinners. See, white supremacy always has known how dangerous foundational black Americans can be. That's why they tell you folk to don't associate with us. Because the last thing they need is some of that to rub off on y'all, which obviously it has not. But that's why they work so hard to divide and conquer us. Now the thing is, aside from that, black folk don't want no problem. We just want to be left alone. We just want to enjoy ourselves and enjoy the American dream and raise our family. That's what we want to do. But when push comes to shove, we will defend ourselves. And see, white supremacy racism tricks Africans and Caribbeans into looking down on black Americans, telling you we're criminals and we're lazy and we're unworthy. But the goal is, but the goal isn't truth. The goal is manipulation. They want you to work harder, not for your benefit, but to keep the system alive. They did it to us too. We spent decades working ourselves to exhaustion, only to have it all burned down or stolen or rezoned into oblivion. They ran a freeway right through our hard work. Somebody type work hard in the chat room. Shout out to David Johnson. Now here's the thing. We are foundational black America, and we're not going anywhere. They can try to deport us if they want to, but you know, they'll learn why we're still here. Now the thing is, I want to talk to you Africans for a minute. Foundational black Americans, truthfully, just now meeting you. Shout out to Still Solid. And many of us don't like what we see. And when I say just now meeting you, I want you to understand something. Be clear about something. Prior to the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, the United States was governed by the 1924 Johnson-Reed Act, fresh out of Red Summer. You have the 1924 Jackson-Reed Act, which imposed national origin quotas favoring Western Europeans and severely restricting immigration from Africa, Caribbean, Asia, and Latin America. Under those laws, black immigrants from non-European countries, particularly from the African continent and the West Indies, you were limited to a couple of hundred people a year. Y'all couldn't come here. You were not allowed. And it wasn't until 1965, and keep in mind, up until 1965, the black population in America was 9%. The Hispanic population in America was less than 5%. I think it was 3%. The Asian population was less than 1%. So this was mostly just a black and white country. And it wasn't until 1965, pushed largely by the civil rights movement, that these racially biased quotas for immigration was eliminated. So here's the thing. Listen now. We just getting to know y'all. By the 1970s and 80s, you had a lot of Africans and Caribbeans coming to the United States. It became the land of opportunity for black folks and people of color. So that's when y'all start showing up in the 1970s and 80s. You all weren't here in any significant numbers before that. And most of y'all would go to New York and Philadelphia and so on and so forth. You start showing up in droves. Now, here we are in 2025. And approximately 20 to 25% of all of the 45 million black people in the United States are either foreign-born or first-generation Americans with roots in Africa or the Caribbean, like Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, Jamaica, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. Now, see, this is not just me making this up, okay? As the recent data from the Pew Research Center says, the U.S. Census says that about 10% of the total black population in the United States is foreign-born. That's 10%, okay? Primarily from the Caribbean, especially Jamaica and Haiti and Africa, notably Nigeria, Ghana, and Ethiopia. That's where most of y'all coming from. And if you include the first-generation Americans, their children, those U.S.-born children of those foreign-born parents, the percentage rises to approximately 20 to 25% of black people in the United States have these African or Caribbean ties. So see, this demographic shift, it marks what I would call let's say a major cultural turning point for the first time in over 400 years. Okay? Going all the way back to 1619, foundational black Americans are encountering large numbers of black immigrants on our soil. And now that we know you, we're gonna have to be honest. Many of us don't like what we're seeing. Now, let me be clear. I'm not speaking to all of our African and Caribbean brothers and sisters who honor our struggle. Shout out to you. You respect our history. We appreciate you, especially those of you who stand in solidarity with foundational black Americans. I'm not speaking to those who marry into our families. I'm not speaking to you all who build real relationships and form deep, lasting bonds rooted in mutual love and respect. I'm not talking to you. I love you. Shout out to you. I've got it's a brother around the corner married to a foundational black American city. They got the prettiest little chocolate baby I'd ever seen. Just as beautiful. Happy to have him. Yo, I got a sister right now. She's a first generation African, and she's the godmother to my son. Beautiful sister. Love her. You can't tell me nothing bad about her. Love, she done kept many a white woman from trying to holler at Uncle D in the club when I was out there in them streets. She would roll. I was talking to the spine, brunette-looking white woman, and I was, a little tipsy. I was drinking back then. And I'm like, just sitting there, just talking to her. Then she walked right up. What's going on? What's happening here? She just cock-blocked the whole situation. I'm like, I'm just talking to this young lady. We're about to leave. What are you, loud, too? She got real African. What are you doing? Don't tell. I'm like, hold on a minute. Trying to talk to this white woman. I've been fresh out of a divorce. But yeah, I love my African sisters and brothers who are down with it. I love the Caribbean brothers and sisters who stay down. I'm not speaking to the ones who employ us and educate us and mentor us and uplift us. I'm not talking about that. I love me a good Nigerian doctor. Now, they know everything. You know them not, they are like the chat GPT of medical doctors. They know okay, we will take care of these. You have the problem. I love them to death. Can't say nothing wrong with that good Nigerian medical doctor. You hear me? I don't like the restaurants. They take too long to bring the food. They don't never have nothing that's on the menu. But I love them good doctors. You understand me? I'm just saying. It feels good to see that. These people come in with an open heart, an open mind, and a kindred spirit, even if they do have these sentiments. You see? They understand the freedom and dignity and opportunity. And now they enjoy. And we can enjoy our success together. Something that we paid for in blood by our ancestors. But see, here's the other thing. To those other folk, not feeling you. See, I'm speaking directly to those Afro-Caribbeans and Afro-Latinos and Africans and any other kind of black folk who come to this country not to build with us, but to compete with us. To talk reckless to us, to capitalize off our legacy while showing nothing but contempt. I'm talking to those of you who use anti-FBA rhetoric as your stepping stool, who treat our centuries-long fight for survival and dignity as some kind of joke or weakness. You mock us, you scoff at our culture. You see, you think you're morally superior. Let me tell you something. Let me just say this straight up. We don't want your culture. You always saying we don't have a culture. We don't want your damn culture. We don't want your tribal conflicts. We don't want your imported classism. We don't want your colorism, and we don't want your opportunism. We don't want it. Shout out to Joe Blogg. Let's get on down to it. FBA culture is superior to your culture. FBA, foundational Black American culture, is superior to your culture. That's why we ain't running over to your country and you coming over here to ours. Ooh, yep. I don't cook, I barbecue. See, the whole point of a culture is to make sure that a group of people can survive from one generation to the next and thrive. Culture is not about entertainment or fashion or surface level aesthetics. It is a strategic system of survival. It's built specifically to protect the people under hostile conditions. Make this unmistakably clear. The primary function of a culture is not to amuse, but it is to ensure the continued existence of a group of people across generations. Shout out to A's Hole. You understand me? Culture is the operating system that helps a community adapt to and overcome adversity, to maintain social cohesion and transmit values, norms, and history, and a forged collective identity that builds resilience and purpose. We foundational Black Americans reject that shallow, commercialized interpretation of culture, of Black culture that dominates today, that we just about food and dance and all that twerking and whatnot. Look, FBA culture has never been about some sort of costume or pageantry. It's been about our survival. It has been about our resistance. It's been about making sure we live to see another day in a country designed to erase us. From the transatlantic slave trade to slavery, from Jim Crow to mass incarceration, from redlining to police brutality, foundational Black American culture was forged in fire. Period. And everything that defines it, our music, our speech, our speech patterns, the way we dress, our unspoken codes, our mannerisms, our creativity, our defiance, these aren't just quirks. These are weapons. These are shields. These are ancient blueprints of survival. Let me remind you that our culture developed under siege. It evolved as a refuge for psychological warfare. It's a tool that was passed down, strategies for survival. It was a way to assert dignity and humanity in the face of state-sponsored dehumanization. To be a foundational Black American is to inherit that survival system, not just the culture, but the reason behind it. See, that's what makes FBA culture different from the cultures brought by African and Caribbean immigrants. Those cultures weren't designed to navigate the specific brutality of the American system. FBA culture is. And that's why we have to draw a firm line in the sand. Shout out to Alonzo Dunn. Don't allow others to redefine or dilute or co-opt what they didn't die for. But see, to many of these outsiders, what they want to do is they want to cosplay FBA culture. They want to steal the slang. They want to mimic the style. They want to imitate the music. Without carrying the burden of understanding the cost. That is not appreciation. That's exploitation. And it is dangerous because when our culture is treated like a trend, it loses the power to protect us. If a people lose their culture, they lose their compass, they lose their cohesion, they lose their code of resistance, and ultimately they lose their future. A cultureless people is a dying people. That's why the culture must be taught. It must be protected. It must be honored. FBA culture is not a dance or a catchphrase. It is a blood-soaked legacy of rebellion, adaptation, innovation, and survival. And anyone who dares to trivialize it needs to understand that this culture was built to outlast oppression, and it will outlast you. Now, here's the thing. When you look at foundational Black American culture, one undeniable truth rises above all things. It has been astonishingly, unapologetically, and historically successful, not in spite of hardship, but because it was forged through hardship. Our culture didn't develop in a vacuum. It grew under constant siege. We have been surrounded by hostile people who don't want us here, constantly under surveillance, constantly subject to sabotage and systematic oppression. And yet we survived. We adapted and we thrived. You understand me? Think about that. We went from plantations to penitentiaries. We went from sharecropping to urban ghettos, and we still here. Every blow they threw meant to destroy us became an opportunity for us to evolve. See, other cultures are allowed to flourish under the protection of nationhood or ethnic enclaves. Foundational Black American culture was created in the belly of the beast. We've been surrounded by white supremacy. We've been stalked by racism. We've been deliberately undermined at every turn. And despite all that, we have produced generations of artists, intellectuals, inventors, entrepreneurs, warriors, and freedom fighters known across the world, from Muhammad Ali to Frederick Douglass, from Martin Luther King to Malcolm X. Everybody sees us. We transformed cotton fields into jazz clubs, and slave songs into soul music, and broken homes into movements, and pain into poetry. That is not survival by accident. That is survival by design. And let's be brutally honest. We are the only ethnic group in the United States that has been targeted for the total, for total cultural, physical, and economic destruction, and we still remain intact. You understand me? You see how serious that is? And these people got the nerve to say, we have no culture. We were stripped of our names, our languages, our religions, our ancestry. And yet we created a new people, a new culture, and a new legacy from the ashes. That legacy, that FBA culture is not just vibrant, it is indestructible. Even when every institution in America, from housing to healthcare to education to employment, has been weaponized to keep us down, we continue to influence every corner of American culture, from music to sports to politics to fashion. We set the tone, the trend, and the rhythm of every society that once tried to wipe us out. And this didn't happen because white people gave us a fair shot. It happened because FBA culture armed us with the tools to resist, to regroup, to rebuild, and to rise again. I want you to understand that white America spent centuries trying to either erase us or absorb us like it did the Italians, like it did the Irish, like it did the Polish. But we forced them to accept us who we are. Shout out to your people. We forced them to accept us for our black selves. Shout out to David Johnson. So when I say that FBA culture is superior to these immigrant cultures, whether it's Africa or the Caribbean, I mean it. And I have the empirical data and the proof. You all, looking at me, are the proof. We survived everything that was meant to destroy us. No other group in this country has done that, what we've done, in the face of what we face. And we did it with grace, family. You are beautiful people. Shout out to all my foundational Black American brothers and sisters and all our ancestors. You did it with grace. You did it under fire. You did it with defiance. And that's something that we've shown. You can't give us nothing but an applause. Look, FBA culture is a masterclass in survival, if nothing else. It's a case study in resilience. And it's proof that not only can we endure, but we can dominate even in a hostile territory. Check this out. The whole point of a culture is to ensure people will survive and thrive, right? Again, culture is not about food and language. That's too simple. See, unlike African and Caribbean immigrant culture, which developed in countries where black people were the majority and not constantly under siege, FBA culture was made and forged in fire. Shout out to Miss Mimi Amani Faith. Shout out to Derek. So let's make this plain. Black Americans don't want African or Caribbean culture. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's rooted in truth and historical reality. We would fail and we would be annihilated if we inherited your African and Caribbean culture. Why? Because those cultures that produce African and Caribbean immigrants are not built to survive in a system designed to exterminate or assimilate black people. In your countries of origin, you're the dominant ethnic group. You're not under constant attack. Their languages, their institutions, their customs reinforce their identity. They live among people who look like them. Their governments, even corrupt in these banana republics, they still reflect their image. That's not our reality. Foundational Black Americans had to learn to navigate in a system built entirely to destroy us, whether you're on a baseball field or a boardroom. We didn't get to preserve our language, our customs. We didn't even come here voluntarily, most of us. What we did instead was build a new culture out of nothing, one that is psychologically and socially engineered to withstand oppression. We don't want African and Caribbean culture because, frankly, those cultures fail to protect themselves. See, many of the same cultures that people try to romanticize are the very ones that enable colonization. Tribal divisions led to people selling one another to European and Arabs for drums of rum and trinkets. There's no unity. West Africa became the easiest target, not just because of European weapons, but because of African disunity. You speak the same languages, you eat the same damn food, you worship the same damn spirits, yet you were divided by tribes and sold each other like cattle. Yes, that's what you did. That's what you did. Take your talking to. We love to romanticize Mansa Musa. I talked about him all the time. Mansa Musa was the richest man that ever lived on the planet. In the Mali Empire in West Africa. But see, what they don't tell you about the great Mansa Musa, it was that he was braggadocious in his pilgrimage to Mecca. And that tipped off the European powers to the wealth of West Africa, making it a target for invasion and colonization. Mansa Musa traveled from West Africa on his Hajj to Mecca. Shout out to Earth Angel. And he passed out gold to everybody. He passed out so much gold. They called him the Lord of the Mines. He had plenty of it. He gave out so much gold that it upset the economy in those places. It drove down the price of gold for years afterwards. And his parade of gold and slaves was not an act. It wasn't an act of empowerment. It was an advertisement to our enemies. Because soon thereafter, the European countries began to invade West Africa. Let's not ignore the modern cultural behaviors that are coercive or corrosive. African immigrants, particularly some African women in the diaspora, did you know that they made, listen, I want y'all to listen to me. Do you know that African women, immigrants, particularly some African women in the diaspora, they've made it a norm to call the police on their own husbands over minor disputes? Now, black women, you do it too. But you know what happens. So you know why they calling the police. This is the same culture which should promote in-house resolution and unity, instead leans on the very same white supremacist legal system they claim to despise. That's not how FBA women have operated historically. We didn't survive by turning each other in. We survived by closing ranks. Even today, many African and Caribbeans come to the United States and the media align themselves with white supremacy for a leg up. They don't join our struggle. They run from us. They don't honor our sacrifices. They criticize us for protesting. They call us lazy. They say you black Americans don't value education, or you don't know how to build. And you all do value education, and we still make more money than you. Shout out to Hootsie. Y'all keep on working harder. Keep on working harder. We've been there and done that. The only reason you even allowed in this country is because of our civil rights struggle. Specifically the 1965 Immigration Act. And see, when the system turns on them, when ICE comes knocking at the, or deportation threats, then they want us to come save them. They want us to march for them. They want us to shout out to man all. They want us to put our necks on the line. Shout out to man time all the time. You understand me? The Bible says you must be wise as a serpent, as innocent as dove. This means having a pure heart, but a discerning mind. And the reality is many of these immigrant communities have spit on their allies. They mocked us, distanced themselves from us, and cozied up with the same power structure to brutalize us. And now they're being left to reap the consequences of their choices, fam. Foundational Black Americans have earned the right to define ourselves. That's why we use the term FBA, not African American anymore, because we're not African immigrants. I want you to remember what I said earlier. When did these African folk just start getting over here? When did Jesse Jackson come up with that term African American? It wasn't no African Americans over here when Jesse Jackson came up with that term African American. Was it? Remember what I said in 1965? What? In 1965, they passed that law outlawing discrimination against immigration from darker countries. Huh? Right? Remember that? It was about 1980. It got the term 1980 is when Africans start coming to the country. And it was at the same time, right before all the Africans start showing up, what? We started utilizing that term African American because there was no other group of Africans. But see, we're not African immigrants. We're not Caribbean immigrants. We're not recent arrivals. We are descendants of those who built this country who predate its existence. We were not just slaves. All of us did not descend from slaves. Even today, at this particular time, we have those who were in chattel slavery in our historical ethnic and racial and genetic legacy, but all of us didn't start off as slaves. We have a shared lineage, we have a shared trauma, a shared history, and a shared resistance. Our skin tones may vary. You could be light, bright, damn near white, and dark, black as midnight, and still be a foundational Black American because our cultural identity is unique. And see, let me tell you something. The truth is about Africans and Caribbeans, your culture is not built to withstand the psychological and systematic warfare we endure here. There was a study that came out a couple years back that I did a broadcast on when I was examining the unalivement rate of Black men in America. And they had delineated between African immigrants, foundational Black Americans, and Caribbean immigrants. Foundational Black Americans had the lowest rate of unaliving themselves. The highest rate from the Caribbeans, because y'all not built for this. You coming over here, you kissing up the white folk, the pressure gets to you. You're not built for this. You got to be made tough. Your culture is built for lands where you're surrounded by people that look like you. But here you surrounded by white folk and white lights, white adjacents. You understand? What works over there is not going to work here. Worse still, there's a lack of unity. The tendency to sell each other out, to snitch on each other, align with outside, that makes you vulnerable. That disunity is how white supremacy works. Divide and conquer. And if you bring that same mentality into the United States, you're going to find out the hard way that doesn't protect you. It exposes you. Shout out to what's up, baby girl. Shout out to Penny Ford. We're not the same. And we're no longer going to blur the lines. You can celebrate your culture. You can honor your ancestors, but do not conflate your experience with ours. Do not conflate colonization with chattel slavery and everything we've experienced. Do not assume that we will sacrifice ourselves for people who have made it clear that they don't respect us. FBA culture was born in the belly of the beast. It is the only Black culture on the planet that thrived under white supremacy. The rest of y'all folded. And that's why on this land, here in the United States of America, our culture is superior. We don't want to be Africans. We don't want to adopt your culture. Let me say this again. There's no confusion, no misinterpretation, and I'm not trying to be polite about it. I'm not tiptoeing around. I don't care what you Pan-Africans say. Black Americans are not Africans. We are not Africans ethnically or culturally. We are not Caribbeans. We are sure, we don't want to be. You got your own language, your own flags, your own governments, your own resources, your own people, and you brought your Black behinds over here. And despite all that FBA Black folks have had to go through, we are outpacing you in the belly of the beast. We're only 13% of the population. And if you take the Caribbeans out, that's 1/4. Take the Africans out, that's 1/4 of that 45 million. Of that 45 million, we got 1.7 million, 1,700,000 millionaires in a place that they didn't want us to even be alive. You heard it right, millionaires. And that's just the ones we know about. Meanwhile, you got other nations filled with black people sitting on trillions of dollars worth of minerals and land, and you can't get your damn roads paved. They still pooping in the ground in Ghana. They still, look how they living in Nigeria. And you got all those oil reserves. You can't keep your lights on. You're letting China and France and the IMF rob you, your countries, with contracts you don't read. And you got the nerve to show up to the United States pretending to be experts on black liberation. Sit down, sit yourself down. Almost cussed. And here's another thing. 54 countries in Africa, all these countries in the Caribbean and South America. But when people around the world say black culture, they're not talking about kente cloth. They're not talking about juju and tribal chants. They're talking about foundational black American culture. They're talking about our music, our swagger, our slang, our soul. The entire world copies us, from Tokyo to Paris to Lagos. Y'all don't even celebrate your own damn music until an American rapper samples it. Y'all walking around cosplaying us wearing do-rags and throwing up Wakanda signs and gang signs, talking about gang gang. Trying to dance like you're from Atlanta. But it's nothing but an imitation. Shout out to Hoosie. You don't understand the origin of any of it because you haven't lived it. And let me tell you something else. And this is gonna hurt. The only black people in America telling us we need to unify with our African brothers and sisters are these Pan-African panderers. Y'all know the names. Go ahead and type them in the chat room. These Pan-African panderers. They are usually fake intellectuals, failed revolutionaries, broke hotel hustlers, okay? And dusty dreadlock manipulators, trying to shame foundational black Americans into linking arms with people who have never stood with us in any real way. They're the same, look, they're the same one, okay? The same one. Same one all the time. Think about it. They tell you that single motherhood is liberation, or otherwise the black man's fault. They tell you that these gang members are gonna come up and be our warriors. They tell you it's survival. They constantly blaming the white man for every single failure that we have. It's a legitimate strategy. There's no accountability, no solutions, just endless victimhood porn. Now, when I go back to my foundational black American brothers who were fresh out of slavery, they built things, they existed, they did well. And clearly the slavery that we had to deal with and the oppression we had to deal with in 1880 was far worse than what we're dealing with now. But you got these Pan-Africanists who got you looking at the pie in the sky in Africa to go over there. They're going to have you going over there pooping in a hole right now. There's plenty of black folk that went over to Africa and said, oh no, I'm ready to get on back to the US. And let's get real about something, family. Since they like to lecture us. Why would we want that culture? Foundational black American men are the most involved fathers of any other racial group in the United States. Don't take my word for it. Take it from the CBS News and the CDC. The studies show that black Americans spend more time with their children, help with homework, cook meals, and take them activities, and more than whites, Latinos, and Asians, men. Now contrast that with these Africans. Now I want you to understand something. Have you heard what these African children are saying about their African parents? I want you to hear me. Slapping kids across the face, brutal beatings, public humiliation, guilt trips, emotional blackmail. This is what the African children, this is what the second generation African children are saying about their own parents. They're saying you don't raise them, they say you dominate them. You instill fear, not respect. You teach them submission. You don't discipline them. That's not parenting. That's slave master behavior. And it is passed down and repackaged as tradition. You all even admitted that their African children are expected to serve the parent financially, emotionally, and once they grow up, regardless of whether that parent was abusive or absentee or toxic. And this is why you have no generational wealth, because your children's wealth is not theirs. It's yours in your mind. You leech off of your children and you call it honor. That's not legacy. That's economic vampirism. And you wonder why your kids run off to London and the United States the moment they get a student visa or a green card, because they're trying to escape you. They don't want to carry dead weight of toxic family dynamic that bleeds them dry. And don't get me started about the DV. That's normalized in your communities. It is so rampant, and I mentioned this earlier, it is so rampant that African women in the UK and the US have made it a routine to call police on their husbands, not for criminal acts, but for coming home late. You think we want that as foundational Black Americans? You think we want a culture where the state is called to solve petty disputes because emotional maturity is absent? Let's be honest. Your culture isn't built for survival in America. They would eat you alive. Because you used to be in the majority. You built your customs and your ethics and your social structure in lands where everybody looked like you, where your skin was never a liability, where you didn't have to constantly code switch or decipher dog whistles or survive a system designed to criminalize your very existence. That's not the case here. See, in America, we're surrounded by people who are trained to hate us, okay? And they trained to hate us from birth. We had to develop a culture of resistance, not deference, a culture of innovation, not imitation, a culture of self-sufficiency, not dependency. That's why your culture fails here. It wasn't built for warfare. It was built for homogeny. See, we were built for war. And don't act like you're innocent in those in the colonial project. Your ancestors sold ours for scraps, literally. You gave away warriors, mothers, children, medicine men, and craftsmen to Arabs and Europeans for rum and muskets. You betrayed your own kin because of tribal pride and petty power grabs. And you're still divided. You're still selling out. Shout out to David Johnson. You still can't unite long enough to kick out the French or the Chinese. You helped start the fire, and now you want to teach us how to put it out. No, thank you. And that's why we've created a new name. That foundational Black American name. That's why we're running with that. Because we need to distinguish ourselves from immigrants who do not share our experience, our sacrifice, our struggle. This isn't about skin tone. It's about ethnicity. It's about lineage. It's about who bled on this land. From the cotton fields to the courtrooms, from the plantations to the presidency, we built this country. Every gain you enjoy, every visa, every scholarship, every diversity quota was bought and paid for by our suffering. So don't come over here with ignorance. Don't come over here trying to, thinking we need to assimilate with you. This is our house. You're just visiting. We don't want your culture. We don't need your approval. And we don't, look, you're not our kin. You're definitely not our kindred spirit. And the sooner you realize that we're not the same, the better you'll be. It is what it is. Now, I hit on something. These Africans and Caribbeans, you're not built for Western world living. As I mentioned earlier, there's a trend, and I'm talking about reports out of the UK. where these people are weaponizing the state against their own men, Nigerian women. Shout out to James Harper. Much like Caribbean women over there, they calling the police on their men over domestic disputes. It's not about safety, it's about control. When the wife calls the police because her husband is late from work, that's not protection, it's manipulation. It's an attempt to impose dominance through fear and institutional power. It's also a dangerous playbook borrowed from white feminists, and it betrays the fragility of African household culture when removed from its homeland context. But see, the thing is, what this points to is a deeper issue. It's a foundational disconnect between African men and African women in the diaspora. See, y'all want to talk about us. I can dig deep. I usually let y'all do whatever you do. I don't get in your business, but you like to get in there. You like to talk about our incarceration rate. Let's talk about your DV rate. How y'all be hitting your women upside the head. Hauling women over in Africa, some of them don't even know who the daddy is. Highest rate of paternity fraud in the diaspora, aside from Jamaica. I think 70% of the children tested in Jamaica, they ain't even the real daddy. Since y'all want to talk about foundational Black America so much, we're going to talk about you. You calling the police on your man because he late for work. So you got these African men who bring these patriarchal expectations forward in their home countries where they dominate. But in the West, oh no, there's a different power dynamic. That collapses. The women now empowered by legal system use the state as their enforcer. The result, mutual distrust, fractured homes, and broken communities. Caribbean households face the same turmoil. The British press, and this is right now, this is what's going on right now amongst African and Caribbean families in the British, in Great Britain. The British press has the highest documented rates of single motherhood and fatherlessness in the Caribbean. This is what y'all doing over there. Y'all over there making single mothers too. And you got the nerve to talk about foundational Black America. Think about that. We don't need no help from y'all. None. Somebody type none. Shout out to Hoosie. We don't want your culture. We don't want no exotic degenerate culture. And I've already told y'all about this hip hop community and all the degenerate artists that came up here and just infiltrated hip hop and just made it nasty. Didn't I? The superior culture, my butt. You want foundational Black Americans to adopt that? We didn't ask for your dysfunction. We have our own battle-tested system of survival and family building. Despite slavery and Jim Crow and redlining and mass incarceration, it's kept us alive for 400 years. Your cultures was, look, African and Caribbean culture developed in lands where they were the majority. Their culture was never built for foreign resistance. It wasn't designed to handle psychological warfare or systematic bondage and institutional racism every day. That's why they collapse under pressure. That's why they run home. That culture of yours doesn't travel well. The coconut culture, it don't travel well. Our culture was born here. We cotton field culture. Y'all got coconut culture. It does not travel well. It's in the fire. It's in the blood, and we fight. We don't crumble because we're never propped up in the first place. We earned everything. And now we got to watch your imported dysfunction attempt to infiltrate our ranks and our communities and our children. This is a mess. Let me say this again. We don't want your culture. We've seen how African and Caribbean women treat their men in public and private. Shout out to Penny Ford. We've seen the betrayals, the backdoor alignments, the white feminism, the performative respectability while sabotaging Black men at every turn. You all didn't build a movement. You didn't build institutions. You sold each other out for class elevation and trinkets and some state protection. And now that your dysfunction is imploding in the U.S. and America, you want to point the finger at us. We are not you. We don't want to be you. And we will not allow your degeneracy to contaminate what we built. We created the modern Black identity. We created the modern Black music, Black fashion, Black politics, Black enterprise. When people say Black culture, they're not talking about Ghanaian drums, circles of Trinidadian carnivals. They're talking about the style, swag, and defiance and brilliance of foundational Black Americans. Now that I've pointed out the deeply rooted domestic issues that these Africans and Caribbeans are having, I expect y'all gonna try to point your finger at us. I anticipate the deflections. Okay, what is the first thing they're gonna say to us when we say, well, y'all got a lot of DV going on over there in the UK, right? You know what the saying is, you point a finger at two people point the finger back at you. Well, I got something for you. We're gonna have us a teachable moment up in here. Your ears are gonna be burning when I finish. You all wanna say, but aren't Black men violent too in the D? Aren't they have a high rate of DV cases in the community? According to some Black women, they'll tell you that one of them are unalived every 22 seconds. Every 22 seconds in America, some Black man is somewhere unalive in some Black. That's what they tell you, right? Something like that, 30 seconds, 93 seconds, something like that. I've been hearing that for years. It's a lie. See, for decades, the dominant narrative surrounding intimate partner violence, which is what it's called, IPV in America, has always positioned Black men as the primary aggressors of Black women, and it is and them as perpetual victims. See, that's a narrative pushed by the media. Okay? And even educational institutions have gone largely allowed this and it's unchallenged, despite mountains of contradictory evidence. It's a story that has not only smeared the image of Black men, but also concealed the very silent epidemic of Black male victimization at the hands of Black women. See, contrary to popular belief, the numbers don't support the image of the so-called violent Black male abuser. Hear me now. In fact, Black men have been and continue to be significantly affected by DV, both non-fatal and fatal, in ways that challenge these mainstream assumptions. Now, of course, you know, I'm going to come up with the data and the evidence, because when I say it, I'm going to support it. Are y'all still with me? Hit the number 1 button if you're with me. Let me know that you are still here. Hit the number 1 button. Let me know you're still here. Take a look at this. Y'all see that? You can screenshot it and make it part of your, put it in your little cell phones. This is a CDC 2001 report. And it talks about surveillance for unaliving among intimate partners. It was a study done from 1981 to 1988. And it reveals a staggering truth. Black men were 1.16 times more likely than Black women to be unalived by their partners. This was done over a 17-year time period. This is not some fringe statistic. It came straight from the US government top public health authority. And yet this data is ignored. It's buried in reports that nobody wants to talk about and left out of every major DV awareness campaign. Why? Because it doesn't fit the narrative. It's right here. Screenshot it. Find it for yourself. See, instead of advocacy groups and government agencies and media outlets, they focus mostly exclusively on female victimhood, particularly black female victims, leaving black men out of the conversation, out of protection and out of empathy. See, this pattern isn't new. See, the National Crime Victimization Survey and reports from the Bureau of Justice Statistics from 1976 to 1992 also revealed the rates of intimate partner victimization for black men. The BGS confirmed that black men experience more partner perpetrated violence than white men. In other words, black men suffer more at the hands of black women going upside their head and every other kind of thing than white men do. And for years, they suffered even more than black women. So it's basically one way. Now, if this data had been about any other group, it would trigger a national outcry. But because it was about black men, it was buried. See, the reason this truth has remained in the shadows is multifaceted. Number one, media bias ensured the stories of female victimhood get the spotlight. Ain't no money in male victimhood, especially black men, right? All it does is it gets ridiculed, ignored, and erased. Feminist-leaning institutions, including nonprofit, academia, even public health agents, have built their funding and credibility on the idea that men, all men, are aggressors and women are victims. It is what it is. Y'all know this to be true. And of course, black men are culturally conditioned to stay silent. We're told to be a man. We're told to man up. We're told to take it like a man. We're told to avoid calling the police. At least they gonna come in and unalive us when they show up. In fact, our masculinity is policed even as we are assaulted in our own homes. As a result, black men are not only suffering at the hands of these abusive partners, women, we're also suffering from the system and culture that denies our pain. See, today, many black women have learned to weaponize the legal system, especially police, courts, and restraining orders against black men, especially when it comes to DV. A simple call to the cops can remove a man from his home, separate him from his children, and brand him an abuser without a trial, even when he's the victim. The presumption of guilt follows him. Many of you moms, many of you black women and mothers, you know what your sons are dealing with. Many of you young ladies, you know what your daddy had to deal with. You saw it up hand. You saw it. Didn't you? Tell the truth. They weaponize their femininity. They outsource control and punishment of black men in their personal relationships. See, this hasn't been missed, it's been ignored. You understand? Think about that. I'm not trying to replace gender's pain. I'm not trying to replace anybody's pain. I just want to see some balanced scales. And we need to stop pretending black women can't be perpetrators of black men. But here's the thing. Here's why I want to bring this home for you, since we're talking about culture. Think about it. Foundational black Americans, we don't want African culture or Caribbean culture because those cultures were not built to withstand what we deal with daily. They were developed in environments where the majority of the people look like them. You understand? See, African and Caribbean households collapse under Western pressure. You see it happening right now. It's evidenced by the growing trend of Nigerian women in the UK weaponizing the police and calling the police on their husbands. This cultural dysfunction is repackaged as progress. You see? You got another case of Africans selling each other out. See, we have our own ethos and our own legacy and our own war-tested code. Shout out to Liliana. And see, here's the thing. Because of the harsh legal and social landscape in the United States, people don't understand that, or critics of foundational Black American culture, they fail to grasp the unique adaptive strategy of foundational Black American men and how we developed in response to these harsh legal social landscapes in the United States. Here's the thing. It's a strategy born out of survival. It's systematic pressure and lived wisdom. Black American men know almost instinctively that the most dangerous thing that any woman can do in the heat of an argument is call the police. And we understand that this isn't just a threat, it's a death sentence. And the long blood-soaked legacy of American policing has taught us that if law enforcement is called into a domestic dispute involving a Black man, he is not presumed innocent. He is presumed guilty. Okay, shout out to Cool Breeze. He because of this, FBA men have adapted. The smart ones amongst us don't stay in volatile relationships. We leave, even if she has our baby. If you talk to many of these Black men, they left that woman. They didn't leave that child. They love their children. Even if they live around the corner, they're still the most involved fathers. Black men know better than to entertain violent or confrontational women. We don't raise our voices in the home where calling 911 is a negotiation tactic. Why? Because we know that even in our own homes, we are one accusation away from incarceration or death. We know that. And see, this is another thing that separates foundational Black American culture from many African and Caribbean households. Y'all ladies say y'all want a real man. Somebody type real man. You want you a real man. You go get you a real man. You know they go upside them folk head, them women head over there. See, in traditional African and Caribbean context, there's often an assumed male dominance in the home, a true patriarchal hierarchy, where the man controls the household and discipline is imposed without question. That framework does not work in the United States of America or the West in general. It breaks down under U.S. legal norms, civil rights laws, and especially under a justice system that is hyper-aggressive when dealing with Black men. This is why we reject the notion of Caribbean and African cultural models and that they are superior and more traditional. No, that traditional will get you put in jail. See, they're often built on frameworks that are incompatible with the legal realities and the power structures of this land. Trying to transplant those hierarchies over here leads to chaos, broken homes, false accusations, and often tragedy. And yet, despite decades of systematic sabotage and foundational, what we've learned, or should I say, foundational Black Americans have developed a culture of egalitarianism, respect, and emotional discipline. Black American men, that's why you got more Black men getting unalived by Black women, because we tolerate it. We're more egalitarian because we really can't do nothing about it. And this is why Black men, here are the statistics. Y'all don't have to like what I'm saying. You see the report right up there on the wall. Explain it. If you don't like it, explain it. Explain why there are more Black men being unalived by Black women than vice versa. And that's totally opposite to every other group. Explain why we're 1.6 times more likely to be recipients of DV than Black women. Explain it then. I'm telling you why. Because we are more egalitarian. We tolerate more. We're far more emotionally intelligent than most of the men in the diaspora, even in the United States. We're more adaptable. And see, whether you're in Colombia, Germany, Brazil, or South America, foreign women regularly express their admiration for respectful, balanced, foundational Black American men as partners. They don't want Africans. Go over to Germany and see if they want African women. Go down to the Dominican Republic and see if they want those. If they wanted Black men, those Dominican women could go open that border up, go right over there and let some of those Haitian men come in. Couldn't they? That's not what they want. They want foundational Black American men. They want American men. See, Black men, this is not accidental, it's cultural. The same culture that they say we don't have. The same culture that they say we don't have makes Black men more appealing to all these women around the world. They're not talking about African men. They're not talking about Caribbean men. They talk about you, Black man, whether you in Australia or Austria, whether you in the Netherlands or Germany, whether you in Colombia or Kalamazoo. It's not accidental. Again, it is a result of generations of learning on how to survive under pressure, how to walk away from provocation, and how to navigate the legal system designed to devour us. So no, we're not going to allow this narrative to be flipped. We are not going to absorb a blame DV crisis. We didn't create it. We don't lead it. We actively don't adopt. We're not adapted to it. You understand? This is another aspect of our culture. And any of you all who think I'm exaggerating, ask your father, ask your uncle, ask your cousin, ask your brother, ask your best friend. Every single one of us, me included, either personally experienced or knows some Black man who was in a situation with some Black woman who called the police on him. Some of y'all own mothers and sisters and aunties and grandmas call the police on you. I'm telling you the truth, not shout at David John. Black brothers, sisters, all the foundation. How many of y'all know a Black woman who's called the police on a Black man? Type number 1 in the chat room. Go ahead. So you all can see I'm not lying. This is not a pre-poll. I already know what they're going to say. Type number 1 in the chat room if you know a Black man who has had the police called on him by a Black woman for little or nothing. This is what they do. Every single one of us either personally experienced it or knows someone close to us who's experienced a situation. It's not rare. This is not anecdotal. It is commonplace in our community. It's so common that it has become second nature for Black men to walk away to de-escalate and avoid confrontation. And she might fight you for that. Not because we're weak, but because we understand what happens when law enforcement gets involved. We know that the police aren't coming to negotiate. They're coming with guns drawn, billy clubs, pepper spray, ready to make an example out of us. That's why we've developed a culture of emotional restraint, of survival through silence, of leaving instead of lashing out. You know why your daddy left? Because he was tired of your mama going upside his head and disrespecting him. That's why your daddy left. Go talk to him. And it's not that Black men are passive. It's that we live in a system where asserting our voice or our presence can cost us our lives. So yes, our response is different than Africans and Caribbean men because our reality is different. And any honest Black man from this soil will tell you exactly that. It's time to tell the truth, even when it hurts. Because we're not going to let our dignity or our culture or our survival strategies be dismissed by people who have not walked in our shoes and lived under our laws or died in our streets. Your culture is not going to work here. You teaching your children your culture is not going to work here. To the African fathers and the Caribbean fathers, you can't do what you did in Haiti. You can't do what you did in Jamaica. You can't do what you did in Accra or Lagos. You can't do it. They'll put you in jail. You can't teach your sons that. And see, let this be a foundation for a much needed and overdue conversation, not just about violence, but about which cultures are truly built to survive in the West and which are not. Now, we're not going to let you erase us. Foundational Black Americans will not be erased. And I'm not just saying that for dramatic effect. This is a matter of life and death, not just for us, but for this country as a whole. Because see, if Black Americans are erased, if our culture is diluted, if it's co-opted by foreign immigrants and Africans from the Caribbean, It is overwritten by your customs and the immigrant narratives that never forged in fire like ours was. Then America loses the one group that has ever had the moral courage to make it live up to its so-called ideas. We are the conscience of this nation. We are the soul of this country. From the very beginning, this country did not want to confront its sins, but we foundational Black Americans made it do so. Shout out to Penny Ford. We have been the only group in this nation's history with both the proximity and the fortitude and the standing to force America to grapple with the contradiction between its founding documents and its daily practices. See, it was our ancestors, not immigrants, who challenged the inhumanity of slavery through revolts, through lawsuits, through abolitionist writings, and ultimately through bleeding and dying in the Civil War. It was our forebears who marched in the face of dogs and fire hoses and lynch mobs during the Civil Rights Movement, risking death and imprisonment to make this country extend its constitution to all citizens. It was our struggle that laid the groundwork for every minority group and even the identity groups. Shout out to David Johnson. Whether we talking about women, whether we talking about LGBT, immigrant, all of y'all. Every gain that had been made was built on the sacrifices of Black Americans back. Don't forget that. There would be no Latino right movement or Asian American political voice or immigrant protection framework if Black Americans hadn't cracked the walls of white supremacy first. Shout out to Shabazz America. Before anybody else had the courage to speak, we stood up. We are the tip of the spear. We are the shock absorber of American democracy. And let's be honest, without us, America would descend into fascism or worse, because there would be no one left willing to check the system. All of y'all are runners. Whether we're talking about Italians who ran from Italy, the Irish who ran from Ireland, the Polish who ran from Poland, even the Europeans from the UK, y'all were running from the king. You were whooping up on y'all. And we know you Africans are running from all that. The Caribbeans are running from your stuff. See, we're the only people brave enough and rooted enough and morally upright enough to stand and fight. So you will not drag this country into tyranny on our watch. We had the opportunity to flee. We could have went to Liberia. We could have went to Brazil. We didn't. We stood and fought. So when people talk about replacing or erasing foundational Black American culture, whether through mass migration or false equivalencies or diluted identity politics, understand this isn't just about pride. It's about survival. Not only ours, but the nation's. Because if we go, so does the last line of defense against authoritarianism, racial caste, and moral hypocrisy. Foundational Black Americans are not just the demographic. We are the moral compass, the frontline soldiers, the spiritual architects of the American ideal. So goes Black America, so goes the country. We've always been the ones to fight back. We've always been the ones to sacrifice. And that's why our culture will never be erased, because the fate of the entire nation rests on it. Now, I'm going to take this opportunity. I got more to say. I'm going to give you this closing statement. I got a lot to say to a lot of people, and this is really going to hurt some feelings tonight, but I want to take the opportunity to thank everybody who has contributed to the Super Chat, the Cash App, and the PayPal. Y'all hit the #1 button and show me some love and show all the people who came through. Let's see if we got some Cash Apps and Super Chats. We got 54 Super Chats. Let's see if we can get to, let's pick a number. Let's see if we can get to 60 Super Chats, but let me get my mood music playing. Hallelujah for me. I'm doing good. I went through 2 glasses of this water, and I'm feeling good. Have you all learned something tonight? If you learned something tonight, type learn something in the chat room. Anybody who has learned something, type learn something in the chat room. Okay? If you learn something, type learn something in the chat room. Now, I have one requirement. I don't beg for money. And I'm not asking for anything, but I do spend a lot of time teaching you folk some good information that will hopefully help you do better in your life and help you have a better understanding of this very confusing world that we live in. Okay? But my one requirement is that if you learn something, I should earn something. You have to pay for quality. Let's see if we got 57 super chats. If we can get to 60. Nevertheless, let me go ahead and start reading this. Y'all hear that music playing? Hold on a minute. There it is. All right. Shout out to Mr. 43TX Salute, Mr. Dennis Spurling. If it had been, he said, if it had been represented to me from your perspective, I would have had more interest in social studies and history as a youngster. Man, yeah, we need that. I would love to be able to be a history teacher, but it's not a lot of money in that. And those folks, they don't actually do independent study. They just go from curriculum taught in the colleges. You have to have a desire to teach your people. But I teach my own children history. You see, that's what a true father should do. You should teach your own children history. Okay, make sure they understand it from their perspective. But it's out there, man. Shout out to you. Thank you so much. Big shout out to PoohMan313. Thanks for the gift. We got 57 super chats. Let's try to get to 60. 3 more. Respect you, bro. I'm Jamaican American. I feel like some people from my country and other islands are just jealous. Loud they weren't the draw. You don't need to be jealous of us, man. Generally speaking, we love y'all. We love we are very open people. Black Americans are very open people. There's no need to be jealous. Come over here, get rich. Just don't talk reckless. How would you feel as a black man in Jamaica if we came over and all Black Americans did was talk horrible about your country? That would be terrible. It'd be so disrespectful. That is just not cool. And nobody should accept that. And we definitely shouldn't accept that. But anyway, thank you so much for this $5 super chat. Who else we got up in here? Thank you, Kenneth Williams, for the super sticker. Top G said most kids that are born in the USA from an immigrant parent, they stupid because most of them have no connection to their country and they want to claim. Yeah, nobody loves their country more than a person that don't want to go back to that country. Shout out to Yaya Kids. Thank you so much for the $20 super. The Brolistic Sean said, you doing God's work, Blizz. Thanks you, brother. I appreciate you. Top G, thank you so much for the super sticker. He said, Top G, again, great preach 55 years ago. Yes, I saw Black excellence. I learned this from my ex-girlfriend. This is Black immigrants should learn Black FBA history when coming. Thank you so much. Bro, listen, son, I born a handful of African-born women. They was cool, however, I ain't want to keep them. It is what it is, man. You're entitled to your preference. I'm just being honest. The other nations are jealous FBA, period. Thank you so much. Top G, yes, degree, nothing. Once folks hear the accent, yeah, they get discounted. I don't know why they trying to act like they're doing so well. That's not what the stats show. April Lust, my 215, thank you so much. Oh, I just learned something. Thank you, baby. I appreciate you. Shout out to shout out to Alonzo Dunn again. Was around when we integrated into white society. They only let the Africans in that could be used as buffer, spy, and tool to use against us and our upper movement. White supremacy or WS are done using them. Yeah, once they through, you're done. They always break the tools and discard them. Father of many nations. And we got 59 super chats. Let's see if we can get to 60. If you learned something. You didn't learn that, okay, I understand. All the diaspora hate is only helping bring FBAs together. I love my people. My dream that all FBAs would back to the Doshi and connect their root. Here's something else. I mentioned to you all that, a lot of what I find, a lot of these people, Black American women, largely foundational Black American, you have some of the best men on the planet. A lot of the Black men that women are complaining about online, many of them are not foundational Black American men. And many of the women doing the complaining are not foundational Black American women. Remember, 25% of the current Black population is either a first generation or second generation immigrant. Just be mindful of that. So when people start complaining about how horrible these Black men are, what Black men are they talking about? You see, because the statistics don't bear out that. If you got the hardest working group of men, I showed you that. You got the most involved group of men as far as their children. What does that tell you? I mean, it tells me a lot. It tells me some misinformation out there. Shout out to Lance Jackson. Thank you for the super sticker. Shout out to Ghost Rider, UPS, FedEx, Amazon, UPS would not exist without black men doing the heavy lift. Yeah, we out there. Shout out to Alonzo Dunn. Thank you so much. They are broken tools of white supremacy, and white supremacy breaks their tools when they're done. Thank you so much, fam. Ghost Rider, unions were created to block black men from the U.S. labor force. Jim Crow was DEI for white men for 100 years. Reaganomics outsourced black jobs in the 1980s. We got 64 super chats. You guys must be learning somewhere. Hell, let's try to get to 65. Go ahead and run it. Need one more. Father of many nations, pray. I pray for you. You pray for me. I won't hurt you with words of my mouth. FBA family, I need to survive. All black Americans are asking for is respect. What's so hard about showing us respect and solidarity and not talking bad about us and recycling these white supremacists talking? But we're not asking you for anything but respect. And I'm talking to the diaspora. What is so difficult about that? Shout out to Barry Little. Thank you so much. Damn, if Dennis ain't cooking, thank you so much for. Oh, I got some more for you. It's gonna hurt some feelings. Robert Brown, thank you for the super sticker. Curly Locks, Kiki Queen, thank you. David Johnson, thank you so much. All right, we got 65 super chats. I'm still at it. Let's see if we can get to 70. That'll be heavenly. Bars. Shout out to David Johnson. Talk to him, D. Teach. We will resist. Thank you so much. Kilo. Kenneth Milo, thank you so much, family. I appreciate you too. Let's see what we fought for America before it was America. The French and Indian War, keep pushing. Brother, you're doing God's work. Thank you so much, family. All praises to the Most High. David Johnson, the main characters have always been American blacks versus whites. That's true. Everybody else are just spectators and extras down somewhere. Pay homage. Hey, tell the truth, man. Black folks and white folks in America have a special understanding. It ain't always been peaceful, but we have an understanding. David Johnson obviously has not. Still solid. Don't forget Denmark VC. Thank you so much. Joe Blogs, they not like us. David Johnson, we are the culture. Alonzo Dunn, Uncle D is that water tonight? Yeah, man, I got water. My water ice melted. Man, I try to drink water, man. I don't want to drink all those bad drinks, all those chemicals, man. Anyway, thank you so much. Your people, everything is a chess piece and every move is a chess move. All immigrants, legal and illegal, were strategically allowed here to undermine and antagonize and be antagonistic against FBA. There's something to it there. Shout out to David Johnson. Talk to him. The American blacks were forged in fire, and that can't be copied. We set the trend. Thank you so much, family. Miss Mimi Amani Faith. What's up, baby? Brother, you are speaking the truth. Thank you, baby girl. I appreciate you. Thank you. And Derek, super sticker. Thank you for the $50, brother. Earth Angel 1105. Thank you for the $10 super sticker. Tell the truth, lawman. Appreciate you, brother. Hootsie. Teach Professor Us. That's right, man. Shout out to you, brother. I appreciate that. I took last week off from my jiu-jitsu. Because I've been working with you guys. Like it takes a lot. I typically go to jiu-jitsu anywhere from 10 to 12 times a week because I'm marching forward. I got my 4th blue stripe in jiu-jitsu, and it's hard on this body, baby. It's hard. I'm gonna tell you now, it's hard. But I want to be an example for my children. Never quit even when something's hard. So I'm about halfway through. Once I get this purple belt, I got about another 4 years to get my black belt. But I'm gonna keep pushing. Thank you so much, Husi. Man, all the time the messages is so needed. Thank you, brother. Thank you, family. I appreciate you. Holmes, Novel said, Holmes, you have been speaking fire for at least 30 minutes. I hear you, Slim. Hey, that's what's up. Speak that truth. You rocking in their head with that truth. Thank you so much, brother. Penny Ford, what's up, baby girl? What up, D? What's up? Why would we ever go for that? African-American stuff anyway. I never referred to myself as that. They were lining us up to be replaced. And we need one more super chat to get 70. Y'all, if you learn something, I appreciate it if I can get that set. We got 69 super chats. I still got more work to do now. I'm not finished. Maybe I'll impress you a little later. What up, D? Okay, thank you so much. We are so easily fooled. We're strong and resilient people. Yes, we are. Hootsie, thank you so much for the $2 super sticker. Say it again. We are who and what we are, FBA. Praying for Alicia, better yet. Get your behind out of here. Excellent content as usual. Thank you so much. Urban Eagle, one of my old school homies, been here for a minute. Shout out to you for the $5 super sticker. David Johnson and Remember Outsiders, foundational Black Americans are the only group of people who ever gave America the bully of all countries pushback. Thank you so much. Respect. That's right. James Harper, thank you too. For the collection plate, appreciate you, brother. Hootsie said, we have walked through the fire and braved the storm. Thank you, appreciate you. Penny Ford, let's see what my girl Penny says. Somebody told them that we were weak and stupid, and they believed them. They have now entered FAFO mode. African men tricking off them ATL women one by one. Lust, greed, and entitlement are prohibited. Hey, they're not ready. Our work in DV system is true. Thank you so much, Liliana. I appreciate you. Cool Breeze, salute OG. Always excellent game, giving respect. David Johnson, a-hole. They do studies on us, trying to understand what makes us what we are. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Penny Ford. I live in Germany and travel every week to other countries in Europe and beyond. I always lead with my Black American on my chest as a means of global survival. Africans are treated differently worldwide, never erased. I know. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That when people talk about Black culture, they're talking about FBA culture, even way over in Europe. Tell them again, Dan. I will, brother. Shout out to you. Shabazz, thank you so much for the 19. Friedman. David Johnson, we fought, y'all ran. Red Sigma, thank you so much for FBA all day. Who else we got? Let me see. Black FBA Butterfly, father of many nations. Thank you so much, family. Michelle, thank you so much. I appreciate you, sister. Teresa B, 490. Look at all these beautiful ladies out here with these good smiles. I like that. I like a smiling woman on the little thing. That's cool, man. I like that. I'm glad that y'all here, man. I appreciate y'all kids. A smile in the heart and a happy heart. Thank you so much. Praise God. Let me see who else we have here. Praying for Alicia. Miss Adele, LJ, thank you so much. We got 70 super chats. Sorry, Uncle, I came late. I'll catch the replay. Yeah, shout out to everybody in the replay. I appreciate you guys for the super hearts ahead of time. I know this has been an epic broadcast. I'll try to roll through this thing because, I wanted you guys to truly get it all and be in a condensed form. And I'm not finished. I still got some more smoke for everybody. Sorry, let me see. Digital Nomad. I love Brother D. You're an asset, but also did you call me an ass? Did you call me an ass? I love you, brother. You're an ass, but also necessary. You damn right. You are damn right. I'm that Uncle D that don't give a damn what your mama said. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I don't care if you don't like me. I'm gonna be here anyway. Hallelujah. That's me. That's why they call me Uncle D. I'm family. And I don't care what nobody think. I'm going to tell you the truth anyway. It was to save your life. Uncle D's famous words of O'Shea Duke Jack. Stop the show, baby. Boris Barracuda, thank you for the $2 super sticker. Ezra Gilliam, thank you so much for the $100. You going to get the rock and roll. You're looking out. Thank you for the $100. Always a pleasure seeing you. Hey, I cook, I barbecue, I put it all out there. You're looking out. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Certainly a true $5 super sticker. Love the name, baby. Keep that up. Miss Adele, good looking out for the $4.99. Well. Let me go ahead and turn this music down. Okay, break time is over. It's time for me to get back to work. Now look here. I've become known for these blistering closing statements. Okay, and I'm gonna give it to you. Now I'm gonna tell you now. Some of you folk are gonna walk out of here upset. Because I'm gonna talk about some of your favorite heroes. Okay? There's some hard truths that need to be dealt with. Something most of us already feel deep down, but are too polite or too afraid to say out loud. There's an unspoken understanding that we as foundational Black Americans have about you immigrants. Whether you're from the Caribbean, African, or Latin America, you are here in the United States, and you're not here to build. You're not here to bond. You're here to get rich. You are here to extract as much wealth as you can and then send it back home to your home countries. Your true allegiance, your true loyalty is not to the United States. Your loyalty is to your motherland. Even many of you first and second generation children born here in the United States, you inherit this resentment. You grow up hearing the bitterness and complaints of your parents and your grandparents about how America did them wrong and how America did your homeland wrong. And the only reason you here is because of America's foreign policies and how things are so much better back home, or how they would be much better if America hadn't messed it up. And so they grow up American by birth, but foreign in their mindset. Their hearts are not here. Their minds are not here. They're resentful of America. They are angry with America. They hate our country. So let's talk about the second generation Americans who grew up in this country, but never embraced it. They see their parents came here illegally or under desperate circumstances. Not to become Americans, but to make money and send it back home. America was a job site, not a homeland. They never intended to stay, and when they did, they passed that same disloyal mindset down to their children. These kids, born on U.S. soil, grow up hearing bedtime stories about how wonderful it was back home in Haiti or Mexico, El Salvador, or Honduras, or some other country they barely even know. Meanwhile, they're living in American cities with Wi-Fi and clean running water and functioning public schools, yet they grow up angry, entitled, and resentful. These aren't kids who appreciate what they have. They're taught that America stole from their ancestors, that they're the rightful heirs of this stolen land and that they're owed something. They weaponize race not as a tool for justice, but as a shield from responsibility. And when you try to explain history, that this land was won in war, paid for by treaty, and built by foundational Black Americans who never left, they call that imperialism. It is amazing that you have a group of Haitians right now referring to foundational Black Americans as COOONs and sellouts and house Negroes. Haitians from other countries referring to foundational Black Americans who are now delineating, they're disrespecting us. So let me put this plainly. If I go to war with you and I beat you, I'm not giving up a check to you. I'm taking yours. And that's how nations are made. See, you got these same people who owe their entire lives to the freedoms and opportunities here, on the streets, waving foreign flags and burning American flags. Let's be clear, foundational Black Americans have never burnt American flags like these people. We never protested under a foreign flag. Do you look back in the 1950s and those civil rights movement? Look at what our noble foundational Black Americans were doing, leading marches. The most they had was a Bible in their hand. Why? Because we don't hate America. We don't want privilege. We want fairness. We want equality. We simply want our country, the one we built with our blood and our bones and centuries of sacrifice, to live up to its promises. So the next time you see someone waving a flag from another land that they barely know, stomping on the stars and stripes with no plan to leave, I want you Black Americans, you foundational Black Americans, to ask yourself, do we really want to unite with them? Who really belongs here? And who's just here for the ride? Now, To my foundational Black American brothers and sisters, I need you to look at something that's going to be very uncomfortable. Many of our great leaders, especially those with immigrant roots, they have weaponized that immigrant resentment, that very resentment that I just discussed, and they have used it to galvanize our pain, to stir our trauma, to push ideologies on us that would have otherwise we've never embraced. We accept their rhetoric because we were vulnerable. We were tired. We were angry about how America treated us. And one of the people that capitalized that was Marcus Garvey. He was a Jamaican immigrant. And his mission wasn't about fixing America. It was about leaving it. His Back to Africa movement, his rhetoric and his vision made it clear that America to him was not a homeland to be redeemed. It was a hostile foreign land to be escaped. And his mindset didn't stop with Marcus Garvey. Many of the most prominent Black leaders of the 20th century were of immigrant descent. And nearly all of them shared a common thread that didn't see the United States as something to be saved. They saw it as something to be punished, to be torn down, or to be abandoned altogether. Listen to some of these online pro-Blacks right now. They want America to burn down. They want the electricity to go off. They want you not to be able to get water. They want the highways to shut down. They want the grocery stores to empty out. I'm just saying. We love Stokely Carmichael, don't we? He was born in Trinidad and Tobago. He's raised in the U.S. He later changed his name to Kwame Ture, and he spent the rest of his life in Guinea, working with African dictators. His political ideology was Pan-Africanist. He was a Marxist, and he was openly hostile to American institutions. Brother Malcolm X, we love Brother Malcolm. Don't we love Brother Malcolm? We love him. His father was a foundational Black American preacher, but his mother was from Grenada, Caribbean. Brother Malcolm spent the latter part of his life condemning America before international bodies as a criminal state and aligning himself with foreign leaders who hated the United States of America. His message shifted from reform when he was under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to indictment. Is that truth? Look at the historical record. Now, this one is personal to me. This next one, another student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a man who I honor and respect, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He has been one of my greatest teachers. I remember him as a young child, listening to his videos, woke up what was inside of me as far as my Black consciousness. Many of us who are in Generation X, we can't ignore the impact that he made on us. Self-love, self-determination, self-reliance. But we still have to separate the meat from the gristle. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he comes from Jamaican roots in St. Kitts. He spent many of his years telling us about how wicked America was and how irredeemable it was. And as I look back, I noticed that in his rhetoric, his loyalty was to a Black global vision. not foundational Black American cultural survival. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Some of you all don't know who Claudia Johnson is. She's another woman from Trinidad, born a born leader, but she was a communist. And she was deported during the McCarthyism era. And her views were so hostile to American values that she ended up in the UK, where she founded one of the first major Caribbean publications. Here's another one. Did we know who Barack Obama was? We thought he was Black like us. But he was raised outside of the continental United States. He was born to a father who was Kenyan and who was also an anti-colonialist. And he often spoke with an air of detachment from American ideals, right? Barack Obama's policy positions often lacked the conviction of someone deeply rooted in the foundational Black American struggle. I'm not telling y'all no lies that y'all don't already know. I know I'm saying all these people were immigrants, and we could talk right up to Kamala Harris. This woman is the daughter of 2 immigrants. Her father, Donald Harris, is from Jamaica. Her mother, Shamala Gopalan, was from the upper caste of the Tamil Indian people from India. She was born in Oakland, California, but she was raised for a significant portion of her childhood in Canada, not in the cultural context of Black American life in the United States. And despite presenting herself as a member of the Black American community, Kamala Harris is often, she's criticized because look at some of the stuff she did. This woman, former prosecutor, Attorney General of California, openly known for open policing Black communities, not embodying justice. She didn't come in the reformist legacy of foundational Black American leaders. Many critics noted she only leaned into her Blackness when politically convenient, while her policy record, all of that often stood in opposition to the grassroots demands of foundational Black Americans. Let's take a good, hard look at the Congressional Black Caucus right now. It's filled up with first-generation Americans who are descended from recent immigrants. Look at Yvette Clarke. She's the current chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. She's a daughter of Jamaican immigrants. What about Representative Ilan Omar? She's from Somalia. She came to the United States as a refugee. Look at Representative Adriano Espeleta. He's born in the Dominican Republic and became he's first formally undocumented immigrant elected to Congress. Cori Bush, Eleanor Holmes, Norton, they all have strong Caribbean family ties. And what do? You wonder why the Congressional Black Caucus has shown increasing alignment with global immigrant-centered agendas, with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus against these immigration task forces. Do you wonder why? Especially since we know immigration does not benefit foundational Black Americans. And see, this shift in demographics raise critical questions. Why? With all this representation, do Black Americans still face staggering disparities in income, educational, healthcare, and justice? Why has there been little movement on issues vital to foundational Black Americans like reparations, wealth protection, in some real systematic form, and more importantly, an immigrant-aligned agendas diluting the core mission of the Congressional Black Caucus? I say yes. See, when you have leaders hold cultural and emotional ties to other homelands, can they fully represent the needs of the people whose blood, bones, and history are extrinsically tied to the United States? No. See, the CBC, They're rich on symbolism. But when it's increasingly led by those shaped outside of the foundational Black American experience, we must question who they really serve. Are we being represented, or are we merely being used as stepping stones by those whose true loyalties lie elsewhere? It's time that we begin to ask questions and demand answers. See, these immigrants don't see the United States as their homeland. They see it as a global bully. And that's why we have to examine this. Because see, they're happy to exploit and sabotage our homeland. They don't want to reform this country. They want to watch it collapse. But ask yourselves, my brothers and sisters, what happens if America falls? Where my foundational Black Americans at? What happens if the system stop working, if the roads shut down, if the grocery stores are empty, if the gas pumps go dry, if the lights go out? Shout out to David Johnson. What happens to the United States of America and the Black Americans who are in? What happens? See, the immigrants, they already ran from their home countries looking for a better deal. So they're going to run back to Jamaica. And as bad as Haiti is, if America collapses, they're going to run back to Haiti. They're going to run back to Nigeria. The Latinos, the Mexicans, they're going to run back to Mexico, back to El Salvador, back to Ghana. But what about us? See, this is the difference. See, our wise leaders, our wise foundational Black American leaders, they were builders, not destroyers. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., let's talk about it. They got you convinced that he was a sellout, don't they? Born in Atlanta, Georgia, in deep Jim Crow territory, King never called for America's downfall, did he? Instead, he appealed to the conscience and the Constitution. In his 1963 I Have a Dream speech, brother Dr. King said, "I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal." He didn't reject America. He wanted it to fulfill its own promises. Even in the letter from the Birmingham jail, King wrote, "The goal of America is freedom. Abused and scorned though we may be, our destiny is tied up with America's destiny." Did you hear that, wisdom? King saw hope in America, not perfection, but potential. But he never wanted to see our country destroyed. Do you hear me? Third Marshal, the first Black U.S. court justice, shout out to DT, for whom none of y'all would have any rights but for his brilliance. Because see, it was lawyers fighting court cases to get our rights. He was so good, they said, we got to bring him up. These white folks said, we got to get him on our side because he is winning all these rights. They're going to have more rights than us. So they had to put him as a Supreme Court justice. They literally they literally drafted him to their side, or at least made him neutral. This is what I need you to understand. This man was the first Black Supreme Court justice, and he was lead counsel in Brown versus Board of Education. He succeeded where so many other lawyers had failed. Marshall didn't try to burn down the system, he used it. He fought within the legal framework of America to correct its injustices. He famously said, "The basis of the Constitution is respect for the individual. If we destroy the Constitution, we destroy the foundation of our country." His faith in law, his mission to reshape it in the name of fairness epitomizes constructive patriotism. These are foundational Black Americans. This is what our foundational, when you begin to delineate the immigrant and first and second generation immigrants, leaders from the true foundational Black Americans, do you start seeing a difference? Even W.B. Du Bois, He became so delusioned with American racism later on in his life. He left. He moved to Ghana. And for decades, he was committed to uplifting souls of Black folks within America. In 1903, the classic, The Souls of Black Folk, Du Bois said, one ever feels his two-ness in an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, in one dark body. He didn't see America as an enemy, but as a conflicted nation. He still called it home. He helped found the NAACP, which worked to reform America, not abandon it. Carter G. Woodson, another foundational Black American leader, the founder of the Negro History Week, now Black History Month, an author of The Miseducation of the Negro. He never called America for America's destruction. He understood the value of education and cultural pride. He said, if a race has no history, it becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world. He believed that uplifting Black Americans within the context of American society was the only way to secure justice. What about George Washington Carver? I'm talking about our foundational Black American leaders. I want y'all to hear me. I'm almost done, but I got to let you know. We believe that uplifting Black Americans within the context of American society, all that sounds familiar. And as I said, George Washington Carver, born into slavery in Missouri, Carver dedicated his life to agriculture, innovation, and service. He famously refused to patent his creations, saying, God gave them to me. How can I sell them to someone else? He was not a radical firebrand. He was a builder who believed in progress. And it was through his knowledge that President Roosevelt and Booker T. Washington was able to uplift Black farmers in the Southern economy. Even the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is the great teacher of Malcolm X and Minister Louis Farrakhan, we often allow the students to overshadow the teacher. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he was a separatist, but he was not a saboteur. He believed in Black self-sufficiency and advocated for separation from white institutions, but he never called for the violent overthrow or destruction of the United States. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, born Elijah Poole, was born in Georgia, a true foundational Black American. He consistently warned that if America didn't repent and reform, it would face divine judgment. But his warning came from a place of truth, not hatred. In his foundational work, A Message to the Black Man in America, he declared America must be warned, not by hate, but by truth. His call to action was clear: do for self. That meant building our own business, educating our own children, feeding our own communities, and governing our own affairs. He believed in empowerment through economic independence, moral discipline, cultural pride, and Black unity, not chaos or dependency. That's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the great teacher of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and Malcolm X. In fact, if you look at it, you will look through history, Black or recent Black American, fewer leaders were more aligned with the American ethos of self-reliance and personal responsibility than the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. His legacy is a testament to what Black Americans can achieve when we stop begging and start building. Now contrast that, then compare that to some of today's radical immigrant descended voices. Many of these people carry grudges. Joy Reid on down. They carry grudges against America. Elian Omar. They got grudges that they inherited, not live. These people come to America not to fulfill promise, but to exploit it, to critique it, and sometimes to undermine it. They did not grow up with deep generational ties to America. They often don't distinguish between America's global policy and the domestic Black American struggle. To them, the U.S. is an imperialistic villain, and they weaponize Black pain to support their own internationalist or ideological crusades. Many of them preach collapse, burn it down. America was never great. This system can't be reformed. These aren't reformers, they're saboteurs. Standing on a stage that foundational Black Americans built with blood and using our struggle to push their foreign agendas. Look, foundational Black American leaders have never wanted to destroy America. They wanted America to live up to its promises. Their roots were deep. Their love was tough. Their critiques were sharp, but they always aimed to reform, not revenge. See, it's those wise FBA American leaders, Dr. King, Thurgood Marshall, Du Bois, Woodson Carter, Elijah Muhammad. They understood something deeper than mere ideology. We have nowhere else to go. As a practical, historical, and cultural matter, this land, the United States of America, we were bred here. We were enslaved here. We've been buried here. And we built everything from the cotton fields to the railroads to the U.S. Capitol with our bare hands. Unlike immigrants who can speak of going home to somewhere else, foundational Black Americans are indigenous to this soil by way of generational suffering and sacrifice. Those leaders knew that scorning or destroying America would leave our people homeless, stranded in the land where our blood, bones, and legacies are already buried, with no homeland willing to be able to take us. They fought, not because they hated America, but because they loved their people, understood the fight, and that fight was in America, and that's where we'd be recognized, not for us to abandon it. So I want to ask all of you Black American folk right now, are we following the voices that want to heal the tree, or those who want to chop it down and walk away? Where do 40 million foundational Black Americans go? Where do we go if this country collapses? Where do we go if these immigrants who preach destruction and harbor contentment for America actually get? Where do we go? If we allow them to keep coming up here and sucking up our resources, where do we go? We don't have a motherland to return to. There's no ancestral village waiting for us in Ghana. There's no plantation house in South Carolina where we can go reclaim our name. Our roots aren't scattered across foreign lands. We're rooted right here. Our ancestors are buried in this soil. Our history is carved into the brick and steel of this nation. We are the labor that laid the foundation, literally and metaphorically, for the United States of America. We built the White House with chains around our ankles. We laid the railroads, picked the cotton, worked the steel mills, fought in every war from the American Revolution right up to Afghanistan. We're the moral conscience of this country. Without us, there is no America. Without us, the 14th Amendment doesn't exist, the Civil Rights Act. That's our blood, sweat, and tear. Brown versus the Board of Education. Our children. We've been here since before the ink dried on the Declaration of Independence. If America falls, we don't have a backup plan. The immigrants calling for the collapse can run back to their countries. Jamaicans can go back to Jamaica. Somalians can go back to Somalia. Haitians can go back to Haiti. Mexicans can return to Mexico. But where do we go? Where do the descendants of enslaved Africans born and bred on this land, an admixture of so many different people, men and women born in bondage, those of us who came here beforehand, who survived genocide, who survived sexual assault, centuries of dehumanization, where do we go if this country turns to ash? We don't just lose the country, we lose everything. We lose our homes, our schools, our businesses, our legacy. And that's why we can't afford to unite with people whose allegiance is to a passport and a remittance wire. No. They're not here to build, they're here to extract. We are not the same. We are the descendants of men and women who gave this country its soul. And if we are a race, so too is the soul of America. If we begin to allow Black immigrants into this country who harbor resentment toward America, and we unify with them, and they rise to prominence in the media and politics and academia, what happens? If we let Joy Reid and all these other folk, Roland Martin, we as foundational Black Americans allow them to drive the public discourse on behalf of Black people in America, then we're setting the stage for devastation. It will give rise to a radical ideological shift in the Black community. Whether these folk come here legally or illegally, they often carry with them bitter narratives of colonialism and interventionism and economic exploitation, stories passed down from their parents or lived in their homelands. They don't see America as a beacon of light. They see America as a thief. They see America as a bully. They see America as a hypocrite. And when they settle here, that resentment doesn't dissolve, it festers. Over time, many of these folks, they position themselves as thought leaders and policy influencers. But their solutions aren't grounded in making America better. They're grounded in punishing America. And that punishment takes form in a radical political agenda, anti-American rhetoric, and a refusal to assimilate culturally. The danger is not in dissent itself. See, foundational Black Americans have always challenged America to live up to its ideals. But in the fact, but see, the thing is, these immigrants, they want to undermine those ideals entirely. They want to tear down the house. They don't want to renovate it. And here's where it gets even more dangerous for us as FBA. We don't have another homeland. Our roots are here. Our blood fertilized this soil. We built the railroads. We built all the symbols of freedom, even while we were in bondage. And when these anti-American immigrants call for America's downfall, they're not calling for their own destruction. They're calling for ours because they can go home. Because see, if the system collapses, they return to their countries of origin. We can't. So again, I'm gonna ask you the question, what happens to 40 million foundational Black Americans if this country is dismantled from within by people who resent it? What happens is we're left with nothing. We're left with no infrastructure. We're left with no protection. We're left with no homeland, just chaos. And the very people who stoke the flames of collapse will already be gone, watching from the outside as we're left to pick up the pieces, laughing at us like they're laughing at you right now. And that's why we must be vigilant. America is not perfect, but it's ours. And if we don't protect it from those who come here with contempt, we will lose not only the nation we helped build, but the only homeland that we as foundational Black Americans have. So why would you unify with people who hate America? Let me ask you again. Why would you unify based on the color of somebody's skin with people who want to destroy the only house that you have to live in? Listen. See, I think you brothers and sisters got something mistaken. And I need to be clear about something. These Black immigrants from these other countries who harbor these resentments, and I'm sure there's some that's very patriotic, but we see what they're saying. They don't just disrespect us because we're Black. They disrespect us because we are American. And see, their hate isn't even personal, it's political. See, it's not about our skin, it's about our citizenship. See, we as foundational Black Americans are the living embodiment of what they hate about this country. So they push that resentment onto us because we're the only ones that they feel safe doing it to. They can't tell white folk how they really feel about America. They're smiling white folks' faces all day long. They'll never tell them what they really think. But they'll turn around and say it to us. They'll tell us we're lazy. They'll tell us we don't want to work. They mean that about all Americans because they're over here working. They come over here with their chests out. We're the only ones they think they can get away with disrespecting. And that's what makes this dangerous, because some of y'all still believe we're the same. Some of y'all still believe that we're united under this umbrella of blackness. They sold your black behind over here and you were black. They go snitch and tell HR on you right now and you're black. They tell their countrymen don't marry you, don't have anything to do with you, and you're black. What makes you think you can unite over some blackness? They don't see you as brothers and sisters. They see you as soft targets. They see you as buffers. And more than anything else, they see you as an American, and they hate America, and that's based on their rhetoric. Don't believe me? Go talk to them. Go ask them. They bold right now. Go on TikTok and type in Africans versus African Americans, or Africans talking bad about Black Americans. They'll tell you they're only here for the bag. They'll say they're here to make money and send it home. Mexico gets $68 billion a year from remittance. Jamaica gets hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars a year from remittance. Same thing for Ghana. Same thing for Nigeria. They're not here for justice. They're not here for the struggle. They're not here for equality. They're here for a good time, not a long time. And as soon as the dollar collapses or this country stops being profitable, they will leave. So why are you fighting to unite with people who are raised to hate us, who resent our very existence, who plan to abandon this land as soon as it's no longer beneficial? Somebody type Black unity in the chat room, because that's what I'm talking about. This is who you want to unite with? Sounds like a bad relationship waiting to happen. Black Americans have never protested with foreign flags. We ain't never burnt flags like these people. You never seen us out here waving Jamaican and Nigerian and Mexican flags in the streets of Chicago and Atlanta. We're not burning the American flag in the civil rights movement, because despite everything, despite the lynchings and despite the Jim Crow, despite the mass incarcerations, we don't hate America. We just want America to live up to what it promised. We're not asking for handouts. We're not asking for favoritism. We're asking for equality. Nothing more, nothing less. We don't want to tear this country down. We want to perfect it, because this is our home. And it's the only home we've ever known. And we're not leaving. So the next time someone tells you to unite with the diaspora, ask them, do they love this country like we do? Do they bleed red, white, and blue like we've been forced to? And when the lights go out, will they still be here? Or will they be long gone, headed back to wherever they came from? See, foundational Black Americans aren't just Black. We're American. And we're not going anywhere. Thank you, everybody, for the time you spent with me this evening. I appreciate you all sincerely. Shout out to everybody who came through and gave additional chats in the chat room. I love you all. Shout out to all my Black brothers and sisters, all my real, stay down, respectful brothers and sisters in the diaspora. I hope you understand this message and it was meant from a place of love. And if you don't, it is what it is. This is Uncle D. I'm out.
Dennis Spurling.
In the city where the lights don't sleep, Uncle D got the vibe so deep. Representing men strong and free. Dennis Spurling's the king of the spree. In the streets where the rhythm flows, Black men rising, that's how it goes. Uncle D got the truth to show. In his heart, that's where the fire glows. whisper truth and an insight. In his podcast, feel the light. Harmony in every word. Truth and laughter you've heard. Wave after wave of smooth delight. Dennis brings the dark to light. Share the tales unfold. Stories born like morning gold. Feeling the wisdom subscribe and like time after
black men, black men, black men. I want to salute you. Your incarceration rate is down. The education rate is up. We up. We went from. We are doing great for ourselves. So you should salute yourself. Shout out to all the brothers out there, whether you're a truck driver or an engineer, whether you're an electrician or garbage man, a doctor, a lawyer, if you're a hard-working brother, if you fresh out the penitentiary, but you on your grind and you doing it legal and you trying to make amends for yourself, man, I salute you too, brothers. God bless you. This is Uncle D, and you know, I'm out.